The interior of the black Cadillac Escalade was a study in understated luxury. Tan leather, dark polished wood accents. Jordan was a little surprised his dad had sent this one. They had a perfectly good minivan at home, but this Escalade was usually reserved for major clients. "Charles, this is my roommate and boss, Leo Foster," Jordan said, gesturing to Leo. "I'm his assistant for the day." Charles was his family's longtime driver, a man so integrated into their lives that his son, daughter-in-law, and even his son's girlfriend all worked at the Davis family business. Charles' son had grown up playing with Jordan before acing his SATs, going to a top university, and returning to work as a high-paid designer for Jordan's dad. Charles himself was the picture of discretion and competence, the one they trusted with their most important clients. In the world of business, a sharp eye was everything. Jordan hadn't told Charles anything about Leo, not the way Alex might have. Jordan was the baby of the family, alternately spoiled and scolded by his parents. They'd yell at him for being a genetic anomaly, the only overweight person in a family of tall, handsome men, then immediately regret it. But the constant nagging meant he never confided in them, so they knew nothing about his roommates. But Charles was a veteran. One look was all it took. He could tell his young master's roommate was no ordinary college kid. The clothes were simple, what any student might wear, but his posture, his calm demeanor, it spoke of a background that was anything but common. Standing next to him, Jordan really did look like the assistant. And the young man was polite, calling him Charles just as Jordan did. Then Charles's eyes caught the watch on his wrist. He'd seen his share of luxury timepieces over the years. This was a Patek Philippe Nautilus. Not just any Nautilus, but a white gold model. The Escalade had been a custom job, costing over $100,000 to be outfitted for VIPs. Charles kept it immaculate, cleaning every nook and cranny daily. But the watch on this young man's wrist was probably worth more than the car he was driving. Charles's already polite demeanor became exceptionally courteous. It was professional instinct, honed by years of service, now kicked into high gear. The climate control was perfect, the seats sinking you into a comfortable embrace that smelled faintly of new leather and money. Most importantly, there was no trace of cigarette smoke. Charles's driving was impeccably smooth, far steadier than Walt, the driver at school. But then, their paychecks were likely in different leagues. Charles's attention to detail was meticulous. A small vase of fresh flowers sat on the console. Tissues were neatly stocked, and fold-out trays and large screens gave the cabin the feel of a first-class airline suite. He treated Jordan with a familiar affection, like family. Walt, the university driver, was more like a seasoned employee just doing his job. Flexible and proactive, but not meticulous. His car was clean enough, but never polished to this standard. Professor Hoffman's driver, on the other hand, was a younger, high-caliber professional, suggesting a different kind of employment. You could read a family story just by looking at their driver. The Davis family driver screamed family business, deep-rooted and sprawling, with loyalty cultivated over generations. The ride was smooth all the way to the film set. Leo hadn't even known there was such a large historical filming location so close to Bridgeport. Apparently, it was originally a preserved colonial village. With its convenient location and proximity to the city's large population of young people, it had been developed into a major production hub. The forest behind the village was famously beautiful. A major Oscar-winning film had been shot there back in 2000. Most of director Hayes' new movie would be filmed here. Leo had always assumed filming a movie took months, even years. It was only after getting this assignment that he realized how compartmentalized the work was. His role would be filmed in less than a week, with the production focusing on one actor's scenes at a time before everything was stitched together in editing. The opening ceremony was also scheduled here for 11:33 a.m. Jordan whispered that the time had been chosen by a psychic. Leo found it absurd, but Jordan, whose father kept a spiritual advisor on retainer for the family business, took it very seriously. It wasn't that his dad was gullible. The advisor had made a few uncannily accurate predictions years ago, cementing his position. Rich people didn't just throw money at charlatans. They saw it as another form of PR. If someone tells you good things are coming, it boosts morale and confidence. It was just another expense, a way to cover all your bases, both earthly and otherwise. They arrived a little after 9. The drive would have been faster, but they were stopped at the gate for a lengthy check-in. Security was tight, presumably to keep out overzealous fans or paparazzi. Leo had to call his contact, who then had to call the guards before saying he'd come down to get them himself. Leo felt a small knot of anxiety. The guy who'd contacted him had a smooth, professional media voice and was clearly a busy man, probably an assistant director or something similar. For him to come down personally felt like an imposition. The guy's online presence was also intimidating. His name was Henry Chun, and his Instagram was a curated feed of a life Leo couldn't imagine. A candid shot of him staring thoughtfully out the window of a stunning lakefront condo, a family dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant celebrating his brother's return from abroad, a post about having dinner with some local politician. The whole profile screamed success, and he had addressed Leo as Mr. Foster. After a few minutes, a slightly chubby man with shaggy hair came jogging out, wearing a baggy, worn-out t-shirt. He greeted the security guard first, then turned to them. "Mr. Foster, welcome. Thank you for coming," Henry said, bowing slightly with an earnest politeness. Leo was taken aback. Henry was used to handling actors and had his routine down. Polite, enthusiastic, bordering on effusive, a level of attention many celebrities craved. He'd heard from Director Hayes that the role of the team master was being played by an outsider, her husband's student. He'd expected the kid to show up in an Uber, not a chauffeured Escalade with an assistant. This outsider was better equipped than most minor celebrities. Henry was glad he'd been cautious and remembered the directive. Anything related to the director's husband was to be handled with the utmost priority. Many new actors, even those signed of agencies, showed up alone or in a company car. Only A-listers or actors bankrolled by investors brought their own entourage. This was definitely not your average college kid. Rumor was a rising young star had lobbied hard for this very role and been rejected. Of course, that could just be industry gossip. Starting a film was like launching a startup. Chaos was the default state. Henry respectfully got in to direct them to a parking lot, where several similar black SUVs were already parked. As soon as they stopped, Charles was out of the driver's seat, opening their doors and grabbing their bags, looking like he wanted to carry everything for them. "Sir, Mr. Foster, I'll be waiting right here. Call me anytime you need anything. I'm at your service," he said to Jordan, who had insisted on carrying his own heavy backpack today. Leo, traveling light, started walking with Henry. Henry was baffled. They'd exchanged a few messages, and Leo had described himself as just a regular college student. "Jordan's my roommate," Leo explained. "That's his family's driver. He's curious about the industry, so he's my assistant for the day." "Right," Henry thought. "You're just a regular college student who happens to have an assistant, and your assistant has a personal driver, and you're both here to check things out." "This way, Mr. Foster," Henry said, his professional smile firmly in place. "We'll get you to makeup and wardrobe first." He led them into a massive, warehouse-like building partitioned into several sections. It was buzzing with activity, people rushing back and forth, a whirlwind of organized chaos. Leo wanted to find Director Hayes to say hello, but he was swept along before he had the chance. Stepping onto the set was like entering a time warp. Huddled in small groups were men in colonial-era breeches and ponytails, soldiers in rough-spun uniforms, and maids in long frocks and bonnets. Mingling among them were crew members in shorts, jeans, and hoodies. A maid fanned herself with a paper fan while a farmhand scrolled through his phone. It was a scene of bustling, orderly, chronological confusion. Seeing Leo's curiosity, Henry smiled. "Those are the extras. If they have an early call time, they're up by 2 or 3 in the morning. Their wrangler organizes makeup, gets them here by 6 or 7 for breakfast, and then they wait. They're mostly background. Anyone with a speaking part or a close-up gets their makeup done by our team in here." Near the parking lot, Leo had seen people jumping out of large trucks, grabbing costumes that looked like they belonged in a cheap rental shop, and signing forms. Henry, sensing his audience was completely new to this world, continued his explanation. "The principal cast costumes are custom-made and much higher quality. The extras' wardrobes are generic and reused. Newcomers rent them, but some of the veteran extras bring their own. It's cleaner, and a better look gives you a better chance of getting more screen time. Then you have the ones who are just here to kill time and collect a paycheck. They find the best spots to hide." "Can I be an extra?" Jordan asked, his eyes wide. Henry was just as courteous to the assistant with a driver. "Of course. The union is pretty good to extras these days, especially students. You just register, join the casting group chats, and apply when they post a call. You won't get stiffed on pay." He showed Jordan a few QR codes for casting groups posted near the entrance. As an insider, Henry was in several of them, always keeping an eye out for fresh talent. Leo and Jordan peered at the messages in the chat. At everyone needed. Men, 6 feet 0 inches and up for soldier roles. No prior bookings. Young. No heavy builds. No older guys. Do not apply if you do not meet specs. At everyone today's new scene, male. Height not as strict. 5 feet 10 inches and up is okay. No heavy builds. After reading a couple of posts, Leo and Jordan both shrank back. Damn, neither of them would even qualify as an extra. Since when was 5 feet 10 inches considered short? What do they mean is okay? Leo, at 5'8", 6 foot, felt a sting. Jordan was even more crushed. No heavy builds? Wasn't that discrimination? So much for his dream of being an extra. Still, he had to ask, aren't there any overweight characters in TV shows? There are, Henry explained, but they're rare. Maybe 1 or 2 roles a year. You'd starve waiting for the opportunity, so very few people try. Honestly, if you're young, handsome, and over 6 feet 1 inch, you'll never run out of extra work. If you're lucky, you get a line, and the pay is pretty decent. Right, Leo thought. If I were 6 feet 1 inch and handsome, why would I be working as an extra? The world would be my oyster. I could be a trophy husband anywhere. Still, being on a film set. Wasn't this a prime location for single, wealthy women? Strange that the system hadn't notified him of any potential targets. They couldn't all be in relationships, could they? Henry led him into a room. The first thing Leo saw was a massive circular chamber hung with all sorts of historical costumes. Beyond, there were 2 rows of dressing rooms, then a line of makeup stations in front of a long mirror, all currently occupied. Transparent dividers separated each station. More people, already in costume, were waiting in line behind them. It was like an assembly line, noisy with the chatter of dozens of people. Mr. Foster, Henry had said on the way over, I've arranged for our best makeup artist to work on you. Don't worry, you have a great base. You'll look fantastic. Now, Henry led him in. A few heads turned, but most people were too busy selecting clothes, changing, or getting their makeup done to pay them any mind. Linda, Henry called out to a woman at a station in the corner. When you're finished, could you do Mr. Foster? He's our team master. A middle-aged woman with a bare face looked up, gave Leo a quick, appraising glance, and nodded. Of course. I'll just be a minute. Henry told Jordan to come with him to get the costume, and Jordan eagerly trotted off to help. This was all a bit less glamorous than Leo had imagined. He thought actors would have more prestige, not be running around like this. He knew director Hayes liked to use new faces, but there were plenty of recognizable veterans in the room, too. And here, the stars whose fans screamed for them on red carpets had to put on their own pants. Leo felt like a lost yak that had wandered from a quiet pasture into Grand Central Station. Everything was new and fascinating. If he hadn't been exposed to a bit of high society recently, he'd probably be asking for autographs. He recognized several famous faces, but they all looked tired and unapproachable, their expressions screaming, "Don't talk to me." It figured. Living your life under a microscope had to be exhausting. You can't expect a person to smile, even when they're taking a dump. As Leo was watching others were watching him. The chubby kid was obviously a complete amateur. The main guy, however, he wasn't exceptionally tall, had fair skin and pleasant features, but what stood out was his relaxed, comfortable aura. He looked like a rich kid trying on a new hobby. Definitely a newcomer. The makeup artist, Linda, was a well-known name in the industry. Her hands were deft and quick, earning her the nickname Midas Touch for the iconic character looks she'd created. Stars had tried to hire her as their personal makeup artist, but she had a family and didn't want the itinerant lifestyle of an actor, constantly traveling to wherever the work was. By working on set, she was essentially her own boss, contracting with the production and bringing her team of artists with her. The work was stable, and the pay was excellent. It wasn't usually this chaotic, but today was the opening ceremony, and all the principal actors needed to be camera-ready. Leo felt completely out of his depth, like he'd been dropped into a new video game. A kid in an adult's world. He had to pretend he belonged, to act like a professional. If they found him out, he felt like he'd get hit with a reputation debuff, and everyone would feel free to walk all over him. He was a little nervous. The person Linda was currently working on was a famous older actress, a household name who'd starred in countless classics. She was staring straight ahead, her face stern and intimidating. Leo had no idea if he should try to make small talk, but just sitting there awkwardly felt weird. She didn't look like she was in a chatty mood. He scanned his surroundings, and his eyes suddenly landed on a familiar bar of light above the makeup artist's head. 9:30 a.m., 10:30 a.m. Learn makeup application. Makeup is the most practical beauty filter. Master this useful skill, and you'll be welcome anywhere. Leo stopped looking around. As new as everything was, he didn't need to understand it all at once. Too much information would just bounce off. He centered himself and sat down near Linda's station, focusing on her work. She was applying false eyelashes to the actress. Not in a single strip, but painstakingly 2 or 3 lashes at a time. If it weren't a system task, Leo would have gotten impatient. But since it was, he treated it as a lesson. The result was a look that was messy and thick, yet incredibly realistic. The lashes weren't overly long, just enough to make the actress's eyes look sharp and expressive. Leo watched intently. The actress, Ms. Albright, caught his reflection in the mirror. She saw a young man with clean features sitting behind her, watching her with focused, patient eyes. Ms. Albright was playing the male lead's mother, a pivotal role. She was a Golden Globe winner, a celebrated veteran. But acting is a cruel profession, and beauty fades. As famous as she once was, time had taken its toll. She rarely took roles anymore, but she loved director Hayes' work and couldn't resist this project. She found the modern industry too superficial. She didn't know most of the young actors, and their arrogance made her uncomfortable. Once, she failed to greet a young star because she didn't recognize him, and his fans swarmed her social media, accusing her of being a washed-up diva bullying a newcomer. The next time, she learned her lesson and proactively greeted another young actor she didn't know. His fans attacked her for being matronly and trying to lecture their idol. She'd given up. Now, she just put on a stony face and did her job. An actor's job was to act. But this new kid today had a good attitude. He'd come in and sat down quietly. When he caught her looking at him, he offered a small, shy smile in response. Applying eyelashes was meticulous work. It wasn't difficult, but it required immense patience. Some people had incredibly sensitive eyes that fluttered or watered constantly, making the job nearly impossible. Linda's skill and patience were what made her one of the most respected makeup artists in the business. She also had a gentle, reassuring way with words. Ms. Albright, your skin is in wonderful condition. You've clearly been moisturizing, she said in a soothing voice. You look a little tired, some dark circles under your eyes, but nothing a little concealer can't hide. Your natural lashes are so full and long. I'm just adding a few for definition. It'll look very natural. Listening from his side, Leo was impressed. She complimented, then pointed out a flaw, but attributed it to an external factor. Honestly, seeing the veteran actress this close up, he could tell she had been a true beauty. Her features were perfectly proportioned. Large eyes, a high nose, a well-defined mouth. But she was older now. The wrinkles, the bags under her eyes, the deep laugh lines were all visible. She probably hadn't had any cosmetic surgery. That would have left her looking less wrinkled, but more rigid, like a mannequin. Unless you had a true passion for it, Leo thought, acting seemed like a brutal career. He remembered her most iconic role from his childhood. A girl poling a boat across a misty lake, her long braid, bright smile, and floral dress creating an image of pure, ethereal beauty. The memory was so perfect that it was almost painful to look at the woman before him now. It was the natural course of life, but it felt exceptionally cruel. For a 21-year-old like Leo, seeing her in person was jarring. When you only know someone's youthful image, confronting their older self is a shock, like one of those TikTok aging filters coming to life. He waited for about 17 minutes. Not a long time if you were scrolling through your phone, but an eternity if you were just waiting. Yet Leo didn't feel impatient. He sat quietly, observing. The actress, Jean Albright, noticed the young man's remarkable patience. He wasn't fidgeting or showing any sign of arrogance. She found herself wanting to talk to him, despite her previous bad experiences. It was probably her chatty nature that always got her into trouble. What role are you playing? She asked. I'm playing the team master, Leo replied. Oh, what a lovely voice you have. That tone is perfect for singing. It's almost a waste on acting. Are you a trainee? Which company are you with? Thank you, Ms. Albright. I'm not a trainee, and I'm not signed with anyone. Director Hayes is my professor's wife. I'm one of Professor Hoffman's students. I'm a senior, and I needed an internship, so I came to try this out. The makeup artist, Linda, overheard this and cast another curious glance at him. She knew that any actor sent to her was important. While she was part of a larger team, her services were in high demand. She could have taken a high-paying job as a personal makeup artist. One celebrity had offered her a 7-figure salary, but she preferred the stability of working on set. The industry was a revolving door of stars, but a good makeup artist was forever. Knowing he was director Hayes' husband's student, her attitude became even warmer. Jean was fascinated. It was rare to meet a true outsider on set. She was impressed by how composed he was for his age. University students these days are incredible, she sighed wistfully. That calm of yours is something else. I just stumbled into this industry and have been bumbling along ever since. The next 15 minutes passed in a pleasant mix of conversation and observation. Leo expressed his sincere admiration for Jean's work and asked Linda a few questions about her techniques. His genuine desire to learn was charming. Makeup artists were like the background scenery on a set, but they knew all the juiciest gossip. Once Jean's makeup was done, she went to change, and it was Leo's turn. He asked Linda for permission and set up his phone to record some footage. Youth is a wonderful thing, Linda said, examining his face. Your skin tone is so even, I could almost skip the foundation. And your features are so well-balanced. Since this is a period piece, I'll just add a little contouring to heighten your nose and a touch of highlighter under your eyes, and you'll be perfect. Despite her words, she applied a generous amount of product with practiced efficiency. The process was much faster than it had been for Jean, like a master barber giving a men's haircut. Snip, snip, buzz, done in 10 minutes. Leo watched his transformation in the mirror. Jordan returned and watched with him, offering his own expert commentary. When I do my makeup, it always ends up pilling or looking cakey, Jordan mused. But on TV, the makeup is so thick and never seems to have that problem. What's the secret? Daily makeup cakes up because you're layering too many rich products, Linda explained. We have a little trick. See this? It's just a spray bottle of water. I gently press it into the skin to hydrate. No patting. People pat their faces so hard they give themselves broken capillaries. That's where half these sensitive skin cases come from. Leo glanced at Jordan, who was famous for slapping toner onto his face with gusto, and couldn't help but smile. Don't laugh. I need to press this in, Linda chided gently. Next, you don't need expensive serums. Just plain glycerin with vitamin E. It's cheap, like a few bucks for a huge bottle. Rub your hands together to warm them up, then press it in until it's absorbed. A layer of primer, and then you're ready for foundation. It'll be flawless and stay put all day. Jordan felt like he'd stumbled upon a master's secret grimoire. He watched as Linda worked her magic on Leo. The makeup was seamless. Then came the wig, an intricate piece that looked incredibly real. A bit of foundation along the hairline, and it looked like it was growing right out of his scalp. When Leo opened his eyes, it was like he'd stepped through a portal. His eyebrows were thicker, his eyes seemed larger. He looked like a hero from an old story. He put on his costume, a flowing robe of moon-white fabric, and stared at his reflection, feeling a strange sense of dislocation. It was him, but not him. Jordan snapped a few pictures, but they didn't capture the full effect. By the time they were done, it was time for the opening ceremony. Leo felt the thick layer of makeup on his face and the itchy weight of the wig. It was uncomfortable, but then the familiar mechanical voice sounded in his mind. First contact with the art of makeup. Through diligent observation, the host has acquired a preliminary understanding and mastered practical techniques. Learning ability has been enhanced. Reward, buff, enhanced luck, 1 day. The system always gave the best rewards for learning something new. A luck buff? He wondered if he was going to find money on the ground. Henry Chun appeared to escort him to the ceremony, where the director, producers, and principal actors would all be present. As Leo, now in full costume, walked over, heads turned. Everyone was dressed up, but he was a fresh, unknown face. In an industry that was both fiercely competitive and notoriously fickle, a newcomer was always a curiosity. He finally got his chance to speak to Director Hayes. Good morning, ma'am. Penelope Hayes looked him over, and a satisfied smile touched her lips. Very good. Exactly as I envisioned. She had a good eye. She had rejected the agent who'd pitched that popular young influencer for the role. Just last week, that same influencer had a viral moment at some event and was now trending everywhere. The agent had even called her again, sighing about how they could have capitalized on the buzz, hinting that she should reconsider. In this business, roles could be recast even after filming started. The young star then accidentally let it slip online that he was supposed to have a role but got replaced, playing the part of the naive, wronged newcomer. His fans, drawn to his handsome face and seemingly straightforward persona, immediately started digging to find out which film it was. Before it had even begun, her production was being dragged through the mud. Fans were mocking her online, saying she was a washed-up director who kept making flops, that she had no eye for talent, and that she only cast people with connections. It was disgusting. She'd been in the industry for decades and had heard it all, but it was still infuriating to have her project cursed before the first day of shooting. She wasn't stubborn for the sake of it, but if she couldn't even cast a minor role without interference, the final film would be a chaotic mess made by committee, and she'd be the one to take the fall. She had to stand her ground. Looking at the clean, composed young man before her, she felt her confidence surge. Do a good job, she said. I believe in you. Leo nodded obediently. The ceremony involved a roasted hog on a table, burning incense, and a group photo. Everyone received a red envelope. Inside, thin and light, was a single lottery ticket, a small token for a big dream. Countless film sets hold opening ceremonies every day. Countless roasted hogs find themselves at the center of these rituals, their value unexpectedly enduring in the modern age. The rise of the film industry has ensured the tradition continues. The ceremony was for good luck, but once it was over, things moved at a breakneck pace. A film set is a money bonfire. With hundreds of cast and crew on the payroll, every waking moment costs a fortune. Time is the most precious commodity, which is why a star showing up late is a cardinal sin. An hour of delay could cost tens of thousands of dollars. No apology is worth that much. After the ceremony, there was no time to relax. With all the principal actors gathered, it was time for promotional photos and a table read. It was a brief meeting, just enough for everyone to get a sense of their roles and meet the actors they'd have scenes with. It would be awkward to meet the person playing your wife for the first time right before a take. Fortunately, Leo's character's mother was a distant figure who disappeared early in the story, so no introductions were needed. His role was simple. He was the heroine's beautiful, tragic first love who dies young. His job was to be as handsome and memorable as possible before making his exit. The promotional photos were therefore crucial. Henry had told him to just get a good night's sleep and show up looking fresh. But Leo had learned from his experience with Professor Reed that preparation was key. As Alex always said, you have to respect the tactical details. He could have just shown up and done a mediocre job. He was a newcomer, after all, but he'd been given this chance, and he was determined to make the most of it. He was playing a team master. He had no idea what kind of props the crew had prepared. The costume would be fine, but he couldn't be sure about the tea set. He didn't want to be a diva, making demands as a minor actor, but what if their props were subpar? So, he had asked Professor Reed if he could borrow a high-quality tea set. She had immediately called Dr. Sterling, who had a set delivered to Leo. When it arrived, he saw the price tags still on the bottom of the velvet-lined box. A single cup was marked at $300, the pot at nearly $1,000. The whole set was worth thousands. Leo was terrified. What if he broke it? He couldn't afford to replace it. Professor Reed had laughed. Just use it. He's surely invested in the company that makes them. If this show is a hit, you'll be giving him free advertising. He'll be thrilled. Dr. Sterling is a shrewd businessman. When I told him it was for a photo shoot, he knew to send his best. He's not losing on this deal. So Leo arrived with a very expensive tea set. His plan was simple. If the set's props were good, he wouldn't use his. If not, he'd be prepared. At the photo shoot, the set was beautifully arranged. An antique-style tea table, a rock garden, even a mist machine. But the tea set itself was a generic, mass-produced thing that probably cost $100 tops. It wasn't that the prop department was lazy. This was just for a photo, and the tea set would be a fleeting detail. With a limited budget, they couldn't afford to splurge on everything. When Leo mentioned he had brought his own, the props master asked to see it, adding that if they used it for the photos, he'd likely have to use it for the entire shoot. Leo called Charles, who brought the carefully packed box from the car. The photographer and prop master didn't complain, but there was a flicker of annoyance. Dealing with demanding actors was part of the job, but a newcomer with an assistant, a driver, and his own props was a new one. When Charles, dressed in a full suit like a character out of an old movie, delivered the box, the feeling intensified. The props master was ready to reject it if it didn't fit the aesthetic, just to avoid the hassle. But when she opened the box and arranged the pieces, she fell silent. The set she had procured had cost the production a few $100s. The price tag on a single cup from Leo's set was more than her entire budget. Once arranged, the new set elevated the entire scene. Suddenly, everyone on set was nervous, whispering warnings to be careful not to break anything. The photographer, Abe, had been preparing to spend all afternoon on this shoot. Newcomers, even handsome ones, were often stiff and awkward on camera. Some people look great in person, but bizarre on film. Others are plain in real life, but transform into something magical on camera. The ones blessed by the gods of cinema. When the set was ready, Abe told Leo to just do his thing. It was the first time a photographer hadn't asked him to pose. Cameras were everywhere, along with lights, the rock garden, the tea table, and an antique zither. Thanks to Sean's relentless filming, Leo had lost his fear of the camera. He treated it like a system task. When the shoot began, he activated the tea-making task timer, and his focus narrowed. He also had his own photography skills now. He knew the best shots came when the subject was natural, ignoring the camera, making the viewer feel like they were being looked at, not like they were watching someone pose for a camera. So he began. He lit the charcoal in the small stove, his movements fluid and unhurried. He had to hold back his wide sleeves as he worked, occasionally brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. He rinsed the cups with hot water, the steam rising in a gentle plume. He was completely absorbed. The photo shoot was a resounding success, finishing more than an hour ahead of schedule. When the newcomer had insisted on using his own props, the photographer, Abe, had braced himself for a difficult, pedantic client. He never expected the kid to be so cooperative. Abe had photographed countless celebrities. Some were so stunningly handsome, they seemed to belong to another species. But often, that kind of perfect beauty didn't translate well on camera. It lacked character, a story. Abe's favorite subjects were those with a sense of contrast, an inner world that the lens could capture. It was a rare and precious quality. This new actor wasn't conventionally gorgeous, maybe an 8 out of 10, but on camera, he was magic. Every angle revealed a different facet of his character. A close-up on his eyes showed a deep melancholy, but his posture as he prepared the tea was utterly relaxed, as if he were a genuine ancient scholar, not an actor playing a part. When he looked up, he exuded the quiet dignity of an old-world aristocrat. The combination was mesmerizing. His looks were good, but his aura was incredible. No wonder director Hayes had insisted on a newcomer, turning down that influencer who was blowing up online. That kid, Cade, was on a dozen trending topics. The industry had no secrets. Casting was a battleground. Penelope Hayes had a rival, director Ian Shaw, who was preparing a similar big-budget historical drama. The timing and themes were so close it felt deliberate. Shaw had a reputation for this kind of thing, hitching his wagon to a bigger project and riding its buzz. Shaw's drama was reportedly a male-centric story, a feast of handsome actors designed to capture the female audience. After Cade had accidentally let slip that he'd lost a role in Penelope's film, director Shaw had publicly invited him to audition, praising his talent. Over here, the role was maybe the fourth male lead with minimal screen time. Over there, it was a more substantial part in an ensemble of men. The whole affair had generated early buzz for Shaw's project, which was his signature move. Controversy was free publicity. So, while Penelope's set was holding its opening ceremony, Shaw's team had already released their first promotional stills, capitalizing on Cade's newfound fame. The praise was universal. Cade was undeniably handsome. This kid is gorgeous. That old director must be blind not to cast him. At least director Shaw has taste. I heard she cast some TikToker with like 10,000 followers. Guess she spent too much time looking at filters to recognize natural beauty. Seriously, her judgment is shot. I heard her husband is ugly as sin, but she's supposedly madly in love with him. Gak! When did influencers start getting roles in serious dramas? El Mayo. I'm siding with director Shaw on this one. The guy's a snake, but he's got a good eye. I'll be watching just for this kid's face. On set, Leo was oblivious. He hadn't even made his debut, and he was already being dragged online. Abe, the photographer, was also unaware. He was just thrilled with the photos. The industry had no shortage of beautiful people, but it was starving for beauty with substance. These shots were going to be a sensation. He was so pleased he'd kept shooting long past what was necessary, feeling like he was operating at a higher level. When they wrapped early, Leo invited him to stay and share the tea he'd brewed. It was good tea. It would be a waste not to. Photography was a physically demanding job, and though Abe was a top-tier professional, he was still treated like a tool by most people. An invitation this genuine was rare. He could tell the kid was sincere, so he sat down. Besides, an actor with this much potential was bound to go far. Making a connection now would be a good story to tell later. Abe took a sip, expecting nothing more than a polite cup of tea. But the flavor was astonishing, a fleeting bitterness that gave way to a profound, lingering sweetness that filled his mouth. What is this stuff? It's amazing. It's just something I brought from home. If you like it, I have another packet you can take with you, Leo said. He'd invited Abe over to get his contact info, so he could get the original files later. Professional headshots were ridiculously expensive, and they never gave you the high-res files. The ones he'd gotten for his resume had been terrible. Abe was a master, and getting these photos felt like he was already getting paid. They finished the pot of tea, and Leo gave Abe 2 more packets, exchanging numbers. Abe promised to send him the files as soon as they were cleared for release. After a short break, it was time for the table read. The lead actors had already had their individual photos taken. The male and female leads were both A-list stars, known for their talent. Leo had changed back into his own clothes and washed off the makeup. The wig had been surprisingly heavy, weighted down with hairpins and ornaments. He found a seat in the corner, his heart pounding a little. Just a few feet away were 2 of the biggest stars in the country. He felt like a first-year medical student who'd somehow wandered into a surgery being performed by the world's top surgeons. He was an intern, not even a resident. He had no business talking to them. He just kept his head down and listened. The meeting felt like a lecture. He was a student. His job was to listen quietly and answer if called upon. He was not called upon. Thank God, it didn't last long. The big stars were busy. But a group chat was created for the principal cast, and Leo was added. The group was named the Chancellor's Gambit cast and crew. He had to look up what a chancellor was. He carefully changed his chat name to his character's name, as instructed in the group announcement, feeling a small thrill. The chat was already buzzing with conversation, someone joking that if anyone's lottery ticket won, they had to buy everyone a round of drinks. Leo didn't dare type anything. He just lurked, a silent observer in a world of professionals. Night fell quickly. It seemed like ever since fall break, the sun just gave up and clocked out at 5 o'clock. The table read finished, and it was already pitch black outside. Many productions would have had a welcome dinner, but for most working people, a mandatory dinner after hours is just unpaid overtime. Director Hayes was known for being efficient. Apart from the wrap party, she rarely scheduled such events. Leo and Jordan got back into the Escalade and headed for campus. Jordan had originally planned to swing by his house, but since it was late, he decided against it. He was buzzing with excitement on the ride back. Leo had left with one new group chat and one new contact. Jordan had collected 6 group chats, one for general extras, a niche one for character actors, a makeup artist group, 2 separate gaming groups for different crew cliques, and an assistance group. He proudly displayed his haul to Leo, who was genuinely impressed. While Leo was still figuring out how to say hello, Jordan had already infiltrated the entire social ecosystem of the set. Up front, Charles drove in stoic silence, a silent witness to his young master's successful day. The drive back was uncannily smooth. Despite hitting rush hour, they sailed through a string of green lights. A red traffic jam on the GPS map would miraculously clear just as they approached. Leo figured his new luck buff must be working. The photo shoot had gone perfectly. Abe mentioned that a track that was jamming yesterday had fixed itself, and a light that had been flickering was suddenly working perfectly. Everything, from the lighting to the mist from the smoke machine, had been flawless. Even his seat at the table read had been ideal. He arrived just as it started and had a clear view of everything. Now, this traffic-free ride home felt like another small miracle. Charles dropped them at the campus gate and departed. Leo had left the tea set with the prop department for safekeeping, so he was empty-handed. Jordan's bag, however, was stuffed with makeup samples and notes. He was already planning his next trip, thinking he should bring snacks and energy bars for the crew. Maybe he could even bring his family's camping gear. A comfortable chair would be a godsend on a chaotic set. Today had been more fun than any video game. They had barely stepped onto campus when they ran into Alex, who promptly dragged them to dinner. Someone was treating Alex, and he saw no reason his roommates shouldn't benefit. It was a classic Alex move. As a student government officer, he was often the target of this kind of low-stakes bribery. For the dinners he had to attend, but didn't particularly want to, he'd bring his roommates as a buffer. It was one of the reasons that, despite his sometimes overly mature demeanor, nobody disliked him. He was masterful at redirecting favors and goodwill, rarely keeping anything for himself. So Leo and Jordan found themselves at a hot pot restaurant, listening to a junior outline his political platform for his student government campaign. From the lofty perch of senior year, it was amusingly quaint, like watching a preschooler's power struggle. This kid was seriously trying to bribe the former vice president of the Student Association for a good word. The spicy broth suddenly tasted of ambition and intrigue. After dinner, the student gifted each of them a high-end wireless gaming mouse, a practical, if blatant, bribe. They were leftovers from a sponsored event, he explained. And so, after a bizarre day, they returned to the dorm with full stomachs and new gaming mice. Leo collapsed on his bed, feeling the bones in his back crackle. It was only then that he had time to check his phone. He'd texted Paige earlier to say he couldn't walk Moose, and she'd responded with a series of cute poop emojis. Stella hadn't returned to campus yet. She was spending a few days with her mother. She had sent him 2 photos of identical, framed paintings. I ran into my mother on the way home after I left your place, and she insisted on taking the painting you gave me to get it framed. I didn't get a chance to actually look at it then. Sorry. Face blowing a kiss, but when the framers delivered it, it turned out to be identical to the one she just bought. I thought you gave me your painting of the apple, but you gave me Dr. Croft's painting of you painting. It's so charming. I love it, thank you. However, my mother seems less than pleased. She spent $600,000 on a painting that is identical to the one you gave me. And she spent $600,000 on a painting of you. Rabbit face collision, so now we have 2 paintings of you in our house. My mother's expression today was a mystery. I couldn't tell if she was overjoyed or furious. Anyway, I'll be back on campus after my dad gets home. Oh, by the way, I had that condo redecorated to your tastes. I put in your name. Attached was an image of a property deed. Owner, Leo Foster ownership, sole property address. Apt 1901, 12, Lakeside Drive, The Water's Edge Residences, Bridgeport. Parcel ID. Type. Residential condominium area. 1300 SQ. FD. Holy crap. Leo shot up in bed, the metal frame groaning in protest. He and Stella texted constantly, their chat a running monologue of their days. He told her about the film set, complaining about the strange pig head ritual. It had been a busy, lucky day. Now this. He vaguely remembered Stella rummaging through his bag while they were making out, but he'd been a little distracted. He remembered her laughing at his driver's license photo, a truly unfortunate picture that made him look like a potato with eyes. She had shown him hers in return, which was, of course, perfect. But this? A condo? In his name? Didn't transferring property involve mountains of paperwork, trips to the county clerk's office, lawyers, and taxes? He'd helped his mom with their house title once. It had been a bureaucratic nightmare. Did the world of the super-rich operate on a different plane of reality? If it had been anyone but Stella, he would have assumed it was a prank, a photoshopped image. Alex, walking past his bed, jumped. Crap, what? Jordan looked up from his game, curious. What's up, Leo? Leo didn't know what to say. This was a lot. And how could he explain that the mysterious benefactor who'd bought Dr. Croft's painting was Stella's mother? And she paid $600,000 for it? A painting of him? Did rich people just throw money around without even looking at what they were buying? He couldn't imagine the expression on Victoria Vance's face when she realized she'd bought a portrait of her daughter's boyfriend. The thought made his toes curl with secondhand embarrassment. Holy crap. It was Jordan's turn to yell, making Alex jump again. Leo, the group chat is going crazy. Jordan shouted. Someone's lottery ticket actually won. One of the crew guys won the third prize, like $450. The director and producer were so happy, they each sent him another $450 as a bonus. The producer said in the chat he'll match anyone's winnings, whatever the amount. Wait, we have tickets too, Jordan said, scrambling to find his backpack. Let's check. Leo remembered stuffing his into the front pocket of his own bag. Alex, can you grab my backpack? Alex pulled out the thin red envelope. Inside was a single state lottery ticket. A small gesture, a $2 dream. A $400 win was a great omen for the production. Leo rarely bought lottery tickets. He'd seen the same old guys sitting outside the convenience store on his parents' street, buying them day in and day out, year after year, celebrating a $5 win by spending $50 more. It was a strange addiction. Jordan checked his numbers online. He'd matched too. Nothing. Leo held his own ticket, a strange flutter in his chest. The system had given him 2 buffs today, the luck buff and a weirder one after the photo shoot. Buff, soulful gaze, 10 days. If you maintain eye contact for more than 3 seconds, the target will feel you are genuinely interested in them. It worked on anyone. He'd have to be careful not to stare at people, lest he be mistaken for a creep. He pulled up the winning numbers on his phone. 1, 7, 10, 13, 27, 33, and the bonus ball. 3. He checked his ticket. 1. Match. 7. Match. 27. Match. 33. Match. 10. Match. 13. Match. 6 numbers. The bonus ball was 5. No match there, but he'd matched 6 out of 7 numbers. His heart started to pound. He rechecked, his hands trembling slightly. He pulled up the lottery's prize rules. Matching all the main numbers, but not the bonus ball, was the second prize. He searched for the Bridgeport Mega Cash results. Jackpot pool, $225, $664, $544. 31st prize, 12 winners, $650, $925. 60 each second prize, 168 winners, $18 for $75. 50 each his lottery ticket was a second prize winner, $18,000 for $175. Holy crap. Alex and Jordan stared at him. With a trembling hand, Leo snapped a photo of his ticket and posted it in the cast and crew group chat, which was still buzzing about the first winner. I think I won too, he typed. Second prize. The chat went silent. Leo felt a familiar panic, the fear of being the last person to speak in a group chat, killing the conversation. In the dorm room, Alex and Jordan's jaws were on the floor. No way, Alex said, dumbfounded. Real people don't actually win. Did the lottery commission screw up? Jordan leaped up. Let me touch you. I need some of that luck. I was standing right next to you when they handed those out. If I'd been on your other side, that would have been my ticket. Meanwhile, Penelope Hayes was at home, sipping herbal tea with her producer, Ken Collins. Ken was complaining about Director Shaw's obnoxious marketing tactics. Maybe we should leak our lottery story, Ken suggested. A third prize winner is a great little piece of good luck PR. Penelope was scrolling through the group chat, while sipping her tea. Suddenly, she choked, spraying a mouthful of goji berries across the table. "You have to see this," she gasped, ignoring the mess. "Is it too late to take back what I just said?" The producer, Ken Collins, asked nervously. Penelope Hayes just cackled. "Way too late. It's been more than 3 minutes. Someone really won second prize? This show is blessed. Who is it?" Penelope had only seen the message, not who sent it. But she and Ken had both sent the third prize winner a bonus. She hadn't promised to match any prize, but Ken had. And if he did, she'd have to as well. How much was second prize, anyway? The chat had the answer. $18 for 75. 50. "We match it," Ken said instantly. "We'll call it a marketing expense. A few tens of thousands for a viral story like this? It's a bargain." He was already on the phone with the publicity team, telling them to get the story out. In a group chat that big, leaks were inevitable. This was better than any official press release. Of course, Ken had a fleeting, terrifying thought. What if someone had won the jackpot? He would have had to quietly pretend he'd never made that promise. Penelope smiled. "You can expense it. I've got a professor to support." Ken knew she wasn't short on cash. It was her way of telling him not to worry about the cost. Working with her was easy. She was generous and decisive. After a moment of stunned silence, the group chat exploded. The $300 win had been enviable, but this was life-changing money. This wasn't just luck. This was divine intervention. This production wasn't just a show. It was destined for greatness. And if the show was a hit, everyone would benefit. Plus, with the match bonuses from Ken and Penelope, whoever won was walking away with nearly $60,000 for doing absolutely nothing. The chat was moving so fast Penelope couldn't even scroll up to see who had posted it. Finally, someone tagged the winner as Silas, the team master. Penelope stared at the name and choked again, spraying 2 more goji berries on her desk. Normally, her husband, Professor Luke Hoffman, stayed out of her work discussions. But now, Penelope couldn't help herself. Luke, get in here." Professor Hoffman appeared, wearing a silk robe and slippers, an unlit briar pipe clenched between his teeth. "What is it, sweetheart?" he asked. Ken tried not to visibly cringe. Hearing this burly, intimidating intellectual call the famously tough director Hayes sweetheart was a shock to the system. "It's your student Leo. He's incredible. What did he do now?" "Nothing. We gave out lottery tickets at the opening ceremony for good luck, and he won. He won second prize." Luke's jaw dropped, the pipe nearly clattering against his teeth. "The kid's that lucky?" "Yes," Penelope crowed. "And that old Godian Shaw is on Twitter calling me washed up, saying I can't tell talent from trash. Oh, this is going to drive him insane. He has the thinnest skin. Anyone who doubts my sweetheart's judgment is a fool," Luke said fondly. Ken shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe I should leave." "The last time Leo was here," Luke continued, "Judge Cole happened to be visiting. Leo had never fished before, but everywhere he cast his line, fish would bite. Judge Cole is still talking about it, asking when the boy is coming back." Ken knew who Judge Cole was, a retired, very high-level federal judge who lived in their exclusive neighborhood. This kid wasn't just lucky, he was some kind of good luck charm. They should keep him on set as a mascot. Ken quietly opened the group chat and sent a friend request to Silas, the team master. Then he called the finance department and told them to wire $36,951 to the actor playing Silas. Leo had signed his contract before ever stepping on set. It was a standard actor's agreement, full of clauses about moral conduct and the like. His newly enhanced intelligence had prompted him to read it carefully. The pay was listed as a flat fee of $15,000. For a week's work at most, that was an insane amount of money for a college kid, more than $1,000 a day. He had submitted his bank information, an old account his parents used to send him his allowance. He'd just won the lottery when a new friend request popped up from Ken Collins. "Silas, congratulations on the win. You brought our show a fantastic start. Penelope and I will be sending you a bonus." Leo quickly typed back, "Thank you so much, Mr. Collins, but that's not necessary. The prize is more than enough." Ken replied, "A promise is a promise. It's a matter of professional integrity. Winking face, since the amount is large, I'm sending it from the company account as a bonus. Remember to pay taxes on both the prize and this." Almost simultaneously, a text message notification appeared on Leo's phone. Bank of America, a direct deposit of $36,951.00 was made to your account, ending in 2089 on 10/. Your new balance is $37,410.78. News travels fast, which is why Ken Collins had the money transferred immediately. A lottery win is a fun story. A lottery win on a film set, from a ticket given out for good luck, is a great story. And when the producers immediately and very publicly match the winnings, it becomes a viral headline. The story began to bubble up on social media, helped along by a little paid promotion from the publicity team. The narrative was perfect, a lucky break, followed by an act of integrity and generosity. Ken's reminder to pay taxes was the cherry on top. In an industry plagued by scandals, a story about a law-abiding production was refreshingly wholesome. The hashtags began to trend. Hashtag film set lottery win, hashtag tax the winnings. The story quickly started climbing the trending charts, gaining natural momentum, and soon rivaling the paid promotions from director Shaw's camp. After all, a handsome new actor was interesting, but this was a feel-good story with a twist. Director Shaw, waiting for Penelope to respond to his provocations, was blindsided. She was fighting back, but with what? A lottery win? It was absurd. It had to be a stunt. But he knew it wasn't. You couldn't fake a state lottery win. The kid was just that lucky. Still, any publicity was good publicity. Her buzz was his buzz. He called his team and told them to double down. Hashtag save us from boring TV. Director Shaw's hashtag crown of thorns is coming. Hashtag Cade calls out industry injustice. Loses role to a TikToker. Hashtag top 10 hottest actors 2024. This still a Cade from hashtag crown of thorns is everything. I don't care if the show is good. I'm watching. Back in the dorm, Leo was oblivious to the online storm. He was on the phone with his mom. You won the lottery? Is this a scam? Son, are you short on money again? Tammy Foster's first instinct was worry. No, Mom, it's real. I told you about the internship with Director Hayes. It was from the opening ceremony. They gave everyone a ticket. After he managed to convince them it was real, his parents were ecstatic. That one stroke of luck was more than they made in 6 months of hard work at their diner. I'm sending you $14,000, Mom, Leo said, beaming. The rest I need for taxes and stuff. And you don't need to send me an allowance anymore. My son's all grown up, making his own money. Tammy's voice was thick with pride. Okay, honey, I'll put it in savings for you for down payment on a house someday. Just don't be too flashy with it, you hear? And you should buy a nice gift for Professor Hoffman and his wife. After hanging up, Leo felt a thrill course through him. He planned to transfer the money home, keep a little for himself, and invest the rest while his stock-picking skill was still active. The money had come so easily. A year ago, this would have felt like early retirement. But now, knowing what real wealth looked like, he knew this was just a nice windfall. It was nothing to get arrogant about. He sent thank you messages to Penelope Hayes, Ken Collins, and Professor Hoffman. Then, finally, he told Stella. When Sean gets back, he announced to his roommates, I'm taking you all out for a massive steak dinner. Alex wasn't the least bit envious. Just minutes earlier, his mother had texted him. His father's promotion had been finalized. He was being appointed county executive of a major neighboring county, while also being named Deputy Secretary of Commerce for the state. It was a monumental step, placing his father firmly in the corridors of power. Alex was ecstatic. You're damn right you're treating us, he declared, grinning. We're officially mooching off a rich man. Leo's luck was uncanny. He joked about his family having a motorcade, and now they practically did. He immediately sent the news of Leo's win to his family group chat. His parents were amazed. This boy has incredible fortune, his father texted back. Stay close to him. Meanwhile, the online world, never content with just one story, was about to get another. In response to Director Shaw's escalating media blitz, the publicity team for the Chancellor's Gambit made their move. You think your actor is handsome? You think his promo shots are hot? Fine. Let's see what the people think. They released the photos. The Chancellor's Gambit first look photos drop. Hashtag good omen. 2 crew members win lottery on first day of filming for The Chancellor's Gambit. Evening was prime time for social media. The working masses, finally free from their labors, were ready to scroll. Penelope Hayes was a respected director, and her name still carried weight. Even if younger audiences didn't know her, their parents did. Her new historical drama was highly anticipated. At the same time, director Ian Shaw was notorious. He was the industry's resident troll, a master of shameless self-promotion whose films were often more spectacle than substance. And now, the photos were out. They were stunning. Each image was a masterpiece of lighting and composition. The lead actress looked every bit the daughter of a powerful statesman, poised, intelligent, and dignified. The lead actor, a brilliant scholar from a political dynasty, radiated a quiet, brooding intelligence. Compared to this, Director Shaw's photos for Crown of Thorns looked cartoonish. The emperor was depicted shirtless, drinking with his ministers like they were at a frat party. It was pure fan service, and fans of the lead actor were thrilled, but it looked ridiculous. The most glaring comparison was between the rising star, Cade, and Penelope's unknown choice. Kate played a palace guard. His promo shots were a masterclass in thirst traps. A smoldering, wet-haired look back over a bare shoulder in a bathtub. A dynamic sword-fighting pose. A heroic shot on horseback. His looks were flawless, a perfect specimen of manufactured beauty. This was the actor-director Shaw had saved from Penelope's bad judgment. This was the actor whose fans had spent days mocking Penelope for casting some ugly little influencer in his place. They had even circulated a grainy, unflattering screenshot from one of Sean's earliest videos, showing Leo looking tired and disheveled while cleaning their messy dorm room. Placed side by side with Cade's glossy photos, the contrast was brutal. It had been a brilliant, nasty move by Shaw. He had seen the screenshot and known he had a winning hand. He knew Penelope was fiercely loyal to her husband, an economics professor at a non-prestigious state school. An unknown student from a nothing university? It was the perfect soft target. And then, the Chancellor's Gambit released the photos of Silas, the team master. The internet went into meltdown. The photo showed a young man preparing tea. He wasn't posing. He wasn't staring soulfully into the camera. He was simply absorbed in his task, lighting the charcoal, waiting for the water to boil, rinsing the cups. He drank the first infusion himself, a small, contented smile playing on his lips. There was no acting, no artifice. He simply was. He was an ancient team master, captured by a modern camera. The effect was profound. Compared to Cade's chiseled perfection, his looks were merely pleasant. But he embodied the character so completely that he seemed to have stepped out of another time. The comments poured in, fast and furious. This is the tragic first love of a statesman's daughter? I'm already crying. Did you guys notice the props? That tea set is real. It's a museum-quality piece. I've seen it in a gallery. OMG, I found his TikTok. It's the Roommate Chronicles. He's amazing. Someone at Director Shaw and tell him to watch this kid's TikTok to see how a horse is really ridden. Seriously, I don't know why, but just looking at these photos makes me sad. Knowing his character is going to die. I'm tearing up. This is a true first love. This is the memory you'd carry your whole life. If this is who the powers that be are forcing on us, then I love the powers that be. Their taste is impeccable. Can Cade's fans please stop comparing him to this? It's embarrassing. Penelope Hayes is a genius. I need all the info on this guy in 3 minutes. His TikTok is incredible. It's all just wholesome content. No ads. This is an influencer? Give me a dozen more like him. In the small, quiet courtyard of the Riley home in Grassfield Hollow, Sean's mother was packing his suitcase. She had been discharged from the hospital, but was still weak, leaning on a stool as she folded his clothes. The nights were getting colder. He would need his heavy jackets. His grandmother tucked a small, worn rosary into one of the pockets. Tomorrow morning, Sean would take the shuttle to the county seat, then a bus to the city, then the Greyhound back to school. The mood in the house was heavy. His sister was outside, carefully ladling their family's homemade sauerkraut into a jar for him to take. Leo and the others had loved it during their visit. Sean sat in silence. As the eldest son, he was torn. He should be here, taking care of his sick mother, his younger sister, his elderly grandmother. Instead, he was leaving, spending their precious money on an education that felt like a world away. Guilt was a constant, heavy companion. His sister came over and patted his back. Don't worry, big brother. I'm here. I can take care of everything. I've always been the smart one, remember? You go to school and keep making your videos. I watch every day. It's going to work out. Once you're rich, we'll buy a house in the city, right downtown, next to the hospital. Yeah, he said, his voice quiet. I'll work hard. And if it doesn't work out, I'll come home. They say successful kids belong to the world, but the ones who aren't belong to their parents. I'd be happy to stay here with mom and dad. The next morning, at 3, the roof was slick with frost. Unable to sleep, Sean's mom got up to make biscuits. At 4, his dad, bundled in scars until he looked like a bear, started the engine of their beat-up old farm truck to take his son to the bus stop. Sean, wearing a heavy Carhartt jacket, sat in the truck bed and waved goodbye to the small, dark house, its single porch light a tiny, wavering star in the pre-dawn blackness. Early morning, Sean's dad treated his son to breakfast at a diner in the county seat. He ordered the cheapest special on the menu. No bacon, no sausage. Just toast, eggs, and coffee. He asked the waitress for an extra splash to top off his mug. A hot meal before heading out would keep the chill away. He walked Sean to the Greyhound bus, and when it pulled away from the curb, Ray Foster didn't leave. He lingered near the station, where someone had left a small pile of aluminum cans next to a trash bin. Once the bus was out of sight, he stooped down to collect them. A few cents each, but they added up. The bus hadn't gone far. It rumbled around a corner and stopped again. The driver had to run inside to grab a manifest. Sean glanced back through the window and saw him, a solitary figure under the dim station lights, bent over, picking up empty cans. In that instant, tears streamed down Sean's face. The bus lurched forward, and the gentle rocking only made them fall faster. Leo's eyes snapped open. 5:55 a.m. His internal clock was non-negotiable. He got up and headed to the communal bathroom, his entire body aching with a strange exhaustion. Yesterday's excitement, the late-night bull session with the guys, all that emotional energy seemed to have seeped into his muscles. He splashed cold water on his face, the shock of it clearing the fog. By the time he'd finished brushing his teeth, he was fully awake. Back in the dorm, he tried to rouse the others. Alex, usually the picture of self-discipline, had been too wired to sleep. He'd tossed and turned all night, replaying their win, the thrill of it too much to contain. He'd dreamed that his family wasn't just driving a black government-issue Suburban, but that it had the presidential seal mounted on the grill. Even in the dream, he knew how insane that was. That's cabinet secretary-level stuff his dream self had thought. A car like that would have a Secret Service escort. The dream had been thrilling, audacious, and utterly exhausting. When Leo shook him awake, Alex barely cracked an eye. "Not today, man. Taking a rest day. I'm dead. Need more sleep." Leo moved on to Jordan, who didn't even show his face. A hand emerged from under the fortress of his comforter and waved him away. "My energy reserves are at 0. Every muscle aches. Not happening. I beg for mercy." Fine. His 2 roommates were a lost cause. Leo would have to go alone. Sticking to a running routine was hard, especially in the beginning. If it weren't for the system, he probably would have given up ages ago. But once he'd pushed through, it became a habit. Now, if he didn't get a run in, the whole day fell off. He tried to make some honey water. With Sean gone, no one remembered to fill the electric kettle, so they'd been drinking tap water for days. The honey wouldn't dissolve in the cold water, so he just took a spoonful of honey straight and chased it with a glass of water. After a quick trip to the bathroom to clear things out, he changed into sweatpants and a long-sleeve shirt. It wasn't proper athletic wear, just a plain white tee his mom had bought him after seeing an ad on TikTok. It was from a brand called The Perfect White Tee or something. She bought him a 5-pack. TikTok was a powerful force. It had even turned his mom, who'd ignored online shopping for years, into a seasoned pro. His only plan for the day was to stay on campus. He used to find it mind-numbingly boring, the endless cycle of student life. But after being out in the real world, even for a short time, he realized how simple and beautiful it was here. A pocket of calm in a chaotic world. He went downstairs, stretched in the crisp morning air, and felt the last traces of sleepiness vanish. After loosening up his limbs, he started to run. There was a rhythm to it now that he found meditative. He kept a steady, even pace, feeling every part of his body, legs, arms, core, working in harmony. His breathing fell into a steady cadence. It was like swimming, he thought. One was moving through air, the other through water, but the sensation of total body engagement was the same. The feeling after a run was euphoric, especially when he'd worked up a light sweat. It was as if he'd purged all the negative energy from the day before, exchanging the stale air in his lungs for fresh oxygen that sharpened his mind. He'd gone from being forced to run, to forcing himself, to it becoming a habit, and now, finally, to enjoying it. The transformation felt magical. He jogged toward the spot where he usually met Professor Reed. Dr. Croft had been dragged along again today. She was attacking a nearby tree, gripping a low-hanging branch and letting her body hang to stretch her arms and shoulders. "Anyone who works in one position for too long gets horrible neck and shoulder pain," she grumbled, dangling. "When I paint, my neck kills me, my back kills me. Sometimes I get migraines because the tension pulls everything so tight." She'd gone for physical yesterday, expecting the worst, but the result had been surprisingly good. All her vitals were strong. Her kidneys were fine, her lungs were clear, her heart was healthy. That's why she was out here this morning, full of life. She'd been terrified that after making a huge sale, a cool $500,000, her health would immediately tank. The classic trope of trading your body for success. But she wanted to live. She wanted to eat spicy hot wings and chili cheese fries and all the terrible, delicious junk food in the world. The clean bill of health felt like she'd been given a new lease on life. "Evelyn, you're my savior," she declared, swinging slightly. "I'm alive again." She was so happy she looked like she could hang from that tree all day, completely oblivious to how she looked. Having seen her in her studio, surrounded by chaos like some kind of artistic centipede, Leo found it hard to associate her with the word dignified. But seeing her now, he felt a wave of gratitude. She had gifted him a painting worth $500,000. He knew she had high standards and might have destroyed that first version anyway, but it was still an incredibly generous act. He'd known her work was valuable, but he hadn't known how valuable. And through a strange twist of fate, Stella's mother, Victoria Vance, had bought the second version, while he'd given the first to Stella. Both paintings had ended up with her. It was bizarre. Dr. Croft, glowing with energy, saw Leo approach. Still hanging from the branch, she called out, "Leo, can you come by the studio this afternoon? I still have a little more work to do on the piece." "Of course. I'll be on campus all day." Professor Reed noted that Leo was alone today. "Your roommates couldn't make it?" she asked. When Leo shook his head, her appreciation for the young man grew. It was one thing to start something. It was another thing entirely to stick with it. Persistence was rare. This Leo kid was a good one. Leo said his goodbyes to the two professor NPCs and started running again. He'd only gone a few steps when a mechanical voice sounded in his mind. "Congratulations, host. Your efforts with the gold-tier single woman, Evelyn Reed, have been effective. Favorability has reached 77. Reason: host has demonstrated persistence in his fitness routine. In contrast to his roommates, who have already given up, host dedication appears even more commendable. Please continue to work hard, strive for excellence, and climb to new heights." Leo blinked. "Huh, so that's the secret. The key to looking good is making everyone else look bad." That whole innocent but calculating vibe really paid off. He ran in silence, enjoying the view of the lake and the old red brick academic buildings. It was a beautiful campus. In a year, when he graduated, he knew he'd miss it. The sun was bright, the air was clean, the water was calm. It was a perfect moment. This was the best time of year. Crisp autumn air, colorful leaves, dry and cool. He couldn't believe his favorability with the notoriously hard-to-impress Professor Reed had gone up again, just like that. His luck was incredible. After his intellect stat had increased, Leo noticed he wasn't as purely optimistic as before. He overthought things more. When Alex had first suggested running with him, his initial reaction was, "Great, the more the merrier." But a second, darker thought had followed. Alex is a social butterfly. What if he hits it off with Professor Reed and she doesn't need me anymore? The thought was instantaneous, and he was immediately ashamed of it. His world felt so small. Professor Reed had met countless people. What made him think Alex was some kind of threat? It was a strange, contradictory feeling dripping with jealousy. You don't get jealous of a billionaire for being rich, but you get jealous of your buddy when he strikes it rich. You don't envy a scientist for their intelligence, but you envy your friend for getting a better grade. The moment that thought surfaced, Leo felt a pang of self-loathing. He was becoming petty. He quickly gave himself a mental scolding. There were countless people in the world better than him, more capable than Alex. He couldn't possibly be jealous of all of them. He was overthinking it. Just let things happen naturally. But it's the small moments that reveal your true character. Leo didn't like this calculating side of himself. He hadn't even made it big yet, and he was already getting fussy. After all that self-criticism, it was almost comical that he'd gained favorability precisely because his roommates hadn't shown up. It was an unexpected bonus, but it also highlighted the pettiness of his earlier worries. Facing your own flaws, acknowledging the darker parts of your nature, that had to be a form of progress, right? He slowed to a jog, taking in the scenery and listening to music. It was a genuinely enjoyable process. His run ended at the student strip, where he was hit by a heavenly smell. The legendary grease pit donut truck was out, the owner already frying a fresh batch. Leo loved them hot out of the oil. He watched as the dough slowly turned golden and crispy. He bought a feast, a dozen assorted donuts, a few crullers, some apple fritters, and a coffee. He asked for 7 plain glazed donuts, still hot. He started eating one the second it was in his hand. The smell of the oil, the crispy texture, the warm, sugary dough. It was heaven. He sprinted back to the dorm, munching as he went. He wondered if a girlfriend would be turned off seeing him like this, a donut hanging out of his mouth. Who cared? The donut was delicious, so hot it almost burned his tongue. When he got back, his roommates were just stirring, not because he'd woken them, but because the scent of fried dough had lured them from their slumber. The donuts from this place were legendary, sweet, fluffy, and utterly irresistible. "They're still warm and crispy," Leo announced. "Get up now if you want one before they get cold." He grabbed his own share and started eating. Jordan and Alex dragged themselves out of bed, their stomachs having made the decision for them. While he ate, Leo scrolled through his phone. He didn't know who invented smartphones, but they were the perfect mealtime companion. The film crew's group chat had over 1,000 new messages from last night. He opened it and saw they'd posted some production stills. Everyone was raving about them. After that, The late-night conversation had turned to a news story about a young woman with lupus who had decided to pursue medically assisted suicide. A young actress said she'd want to do the same if she were in that much pain, that everyone should cherish their health. A cinematographer argued that it was selfish to not fight, to put your family through that. The debate got heated. Finally, someone broke the tension by posting pictures of barbecue and hot pot, and the conversation shifted back to food as if nothing had happened. It was Leo's first time in a professional group chat. He read through the history but didn't dare to post anything. He'd only spoken up yesterday to announce his lottery win and, as was customary, sent a big cash gift to the group. After that, he'd stayed silent. He didn't know these people. It was a good thing he kept quiet. The chat history was permanent, and the two who had argued so fiercely came off as immature. Even he, a college student, could see that. It was an unnecessary way to expose your flaws. Alex, he thought, was always so careful with his words, except when he was drunk. He barely ever posted anything online. After scrolling through the crew chat, he switched to his dorm group. Sean, photo of a train station. Sean, I'll be back on campus tonight. Leo typed back, what time's your arrival? Sean, screenshot of a bus ticket. Greyhound hashtag 1634. Leo zoomed in on the image. A bus ticket? For a ride that was over 10 hours long. Suddenly, the donut in his mouth felt like it was stuck in his throat. Leo, I'll come pick you up. He then habitually opened TikTok, and a video of himself popped up on his feed. Sean had been posting short clips every day. He was clearly busy, but he wasn't slacking. Even the short clips were beautifully shot. The likes and comments were consistently high. Leo had just been scrolling, but he noticed this video, the one of him preparing tea, had an extra digit in its like count. Curious, he clicked on the account profile. He hadn't been paying close attention, but overnight, the account had amassed over 600,000 followers. He was floored. How did it gain so many followers in one night? What happened? He did a quick search online and pieced it together. Apparently, director Penelope Hayes and another well-known director, Ian Shaw, had gotten into a public spat. And it was about him. The role of Silas, the team master, was originally supposed to go to an actor named Cade. But according to the rumors, he was pushed out by one of director Hayes' connections, Leo. Cade had then taken a bigger role, basically the third male lead, in director Shaw's new series. Shaw had used this to take potshots at Hayes. Leo had no idea who Cade was. He looked him up. Whoa, the guy was ridiculously handsome, like a marble sculpture come to life, with a hint of some kind of exotic heritage. How could Leo possibly compete with that? Sure enough, Cade's fans were flooding social media with hate comments. In response, director Hayes' team had released the production still of him. To be honest, it was an amazing photo. Pure luck. The lighting made him look like he was glowing, not a hint of his usual awkwardness. Just looking at the still, he could almost hold his own against Cade's god-tier looks. Then, because of his lottery win yesterday, and the fact that he was the nepotism baby playing the team master, someone had linked to the roommate's TikTok account. And just like that, through a bizarre confluence of events, it had become a trending topic overnight. There were fan wars, arguments, and free publicity for both directors' new shows. But the biggest beneficiary was him. His TikTok account had gained hundreds of thousands of followers in a single night. This enhanced luck buff was insane. In one day, he had a condo, money, and followers. All the benefits seemed to have landed in his lap. If he had this buff every day, he could just lie back and watch the money roll in. It was almost too powerful. But then he thought, if life were that easy, it would be pretty meaningless. There'd be no motivation to strive for anything. As he was thinking this, the mechanical voice responded in his head. The enhanced luck buff does not create luck from nothing. It merely concentrates the good fortune you have accumulated over time into a short period. If you were patient, this fortune would have manifested on its own eventually. Host has acknowledged the less noble parts of his nature, faced his inner darkness, and is attempting to properly manage these emotions. This puts Host ahead of 80% of humanity. As a reward, Host will receive a new permanent buff, the positive feedback loop. Whenever the host performs a good deed, actively or passively, and receives genuine gratitude from the recipient, the host will gain an additional benefit. Leo felt like the new buff was throwing shade at him. Were his morals really that shaky lately? It was a strange world. Even the worst villain would teach his own child to be a good person, because being a good person aligns with universal values and generally leads to a better life. Alex and Jordan, having brushed their teeth, joined him for breakfast. Alex was always well-dressed, but Jordan was the true connoisseur of the group. His expensive clothes were lost on his frame. A big guy looks like a big guy no matter what he wears. But his fastidiousness with food was another story. He'd carefully slice his apple fritter into perfect wedges and arrange them on a napkin. If it were a hard-boiled egg, he'd have a small dish of soy sauce for dipping, treating it like a delicacy. It was that kind of meticulous attention to detail that had gotten him to his current size. After breakfast, Leo packed his bag and prepared to head to a classroom for some self-study. His new method of reading English texts was working wonders. His comprehension had improved dramatically. He'd learned that a crucial part of learning is output. Otherwise, you're just hoarding information. Eventually, the old stuff starts to rot and go moldy, and then one day you trip and fall, and the whole stockpile goes up in smoke. But Leo decided he didn't want to go to the classroom where his two usual NPCs, Carter and Professor Hoffman, studied. Carter Hayes had become obsessed with the stock market, a little too dependent on Leo showing up every day to give him tips. Leo himself was just faking it with a buff. Once that buff disappeared, he'd be as clueless as any other amateur analyst. It was one thing to secretly make a little money for himself, but it was another to use his temporary advantage to lead a group of people. That's how you end up in real trouble. He made a plan for his winnings. He'd invest about a quarter of yesterday's earnings into the stock market and keep the rest for emergencies. When the lottery money came through, after taxes, he'd send his mom $10,000. Whether they needed it or not, it would give him an peace of mind. He hadn't dared to look at the market recently. Even the stocks he'd picked with the buff, while trending upward, were volatile. If he watched them daily, he might see a $1,000 drop in a single day. Day trading was a sucker's game. The only way for a regular person to make money in stocks, besides having insider information, was to forget their password or delete the app. Anyone who watched it every day would eventually give in to the temptation to tinker. Having made a rough plan for his finances, Leo decided to find a new study spot. He deliberately walked to a different building, one farther away, hoping to find a quieter classroom. The math department building was a bit isolated. It would probably be less crowded. He decided to take a shortcut, a small path that wound behind one of the older halls. That's when he stumbled upon the awkward scene. It just goes to show there's a reason your elders tell you not to take shortcuts. It wasn't a couple making out. If it had been, he would have made a mental note to bring Stella here next time. It was Jessica Monroe, the campus beauty from the English department, in a tense standoff with an older man. Before, having heard the rumors about Jessica, Leo might have assumed the man was her sugar daddy, confronting her in a secluded spot. But since his intellect had increased, his greatest improvement wasn't in academics, but in his way of thinking. He used to analyze situations based on feelings and his own biases. His first reaction to anything was usually, "What an idiot." Now he found himself defaulting to logic and reason. Things that once seemed strange or confusing became clear when he broke them down. But if you only ever think with your emotions, your reasoning stays at a middle school level. That's how you get people who say things like, "Putting the facts aside, don't you think you're also to blame?" Previously, seeing Jessica in this situation, Leo's first thought would have been judgmental, colored by the negative rumors. But a logical, rational analysis was simple. A student was being harassed by an older man, and the proper response was to help, not to speculate about her sex life. At the same time, however, logic also told him not to meddle in things that weren't his business. What if it was a domestic dispute? And his new buff reminded him that he only benefited from helping if the person was actually grateful. Helping an ingrate was a waste of time. These thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. Then he heard the man's angry voice. "I saw the live stream. You were in the background, yelling link in bio or whatever. They all say live streaming makes a ton of money, that you can make 10, 20 grand a month, and the big shots make hundreds of thousands. And you're telling me you're broke? I'm not asking for much. Your Aunt Tina says we need to put a $50,000 down payment on a house together before she'll marry me. I don't have any money, Dad. I haven't even paid off my credit cards yet. Young people don't even do that stuff anymore. You and that woman are in your 50s getting married for the second time, and you're talking about a down payment? Let me tell you, if I don't do it, there are other guys lining up to co-sign a loan with her. Tina only asked for $50,000 from me because she thinks I'm a good guy. Larry from my poker game said if she'd go with him, he'd put down $100,000. Dad, I really don't have the money. It's no use causing a scene here at school. Fine. Then Tina said we don't need the down payment. We could buy a house, 50-50. She's not greedy. She's got a few properties of her own. She just wants to build a nice life with me. And if I'm short on my half, she's willing to help me get a loan, but I'll have to sign an IOU. She's a good person, Tina. I can't just let her pay for everything. How much do you have? Give it to me. Leo stood frozen, his mind reeling. The conversation was a whirlwind of information. Every sentence seemed logical on its own, but together, it was a tapestry of nonsense that defied even his newly enhanced reasoning. Jessica Monroe's dad was completely love-addled. This was true love. Absolutely, unequivocally, true love. The dense autumn foliage of the campus trees formed a canopy overhead. Ivy crawled up the walls of the old academic building. Jessica walked this path often. Her various part-time jobs meant she was always rushing, and shortcuts like this saved precious time. She looked at the man in front of her. Her father. He was always neatly dressed, and though his age was undeniable, he looked younger than most men his age. He'd never done a day of real work in his life. His daily routine consisted of playing cards and drinking. He was a mediocre drinker and a terrible card player, but he loved both. He was the epitome of lazy and opportunistic. If he'd been born rich, these might have been charming quirks. But he wasn't. Hearing him talk about Aunt Tina, Jessica felt a bitter laugh rise in her throat. She tilted her head back, but the tears fell anyway. She tried so hard not to be a cheat, but she couldn't stop her own father from being cheated. His last girlfriend, Wendy, had been into everything: multi-level marketing, magnetic therapy mattresses, insurance schemes, volunteering for religious groups. For a while, her dad had been incredibly motivated, working 2 jobs to pay for Wendy's insurance premiums. But there was no money left for Jessica's tuition. Later, when he couldn't earn enough to keep up, they broke up. When he claimed he'd wasted years of her youth and demanded one of their 2 family properties as a severance package. He'd given it to her, severing ties with his siblings in the process. His mother had given him that second property so he'd have rental income, a safety net, and he just handed it over. Now, they only had the one place left. So, of course, the new girlfriend, Tina, wanted to buy a new house. She probably knew the new marriage laws. Anything owned before the marriage didn't count. Tina is so hardworking, not like Wendy, her father said. Wendy was a good person, but she was always off volunteering at some temple. When I was sick a while back, Tina took care of everything, brewing me herbal remedies. I'm much better now, all thanks to her. Jessica stared up at the yellow-green leaves. Her father had been sick with kidney stones a few months ago. She knew. She had paid for the surgery. She had paid for the hospital stay and the home care nurse. And now it was all because of Tina's herbal tea. Right? If Tina was brewing you magical herbs, why did you need a nurse? In the hospital, you were complaining about your unfilial daughter who never visited. Where was your precious Tina then? Now that you're out and recovered, Tina brews you tea twice, and suddenly she's the hero. Next time you get sick, why don't you just call her directly? I don't have any money, Jessica said, her voice hollow. No money? How can you have no money? You have money to buy yourself new clothes. Tina's clothes are years old. You should learn from her. She's hardworking and frugal. Forget it. I wasted my time raising an ungrateful brat like you. Her father, seeing her expression, pressed on. If you don't give me the money, I'll just sell our current place. The neighborhood is full of relatives anyway, and your aunt is always bad-mouthing Tina. Just because Tina paints her nails, they have something to say. I'll sell it and buy a house with Tina in a good school district over by the bus station. Her granddaughter needs to enroll soon, and Tina said we'll split it 50-50. She has her own money and property. She's not after mine. If I'm still short after selling the house, she'll help me borrow the rest from a friend. She has a great personality, lots of friends. He seemed a little sheepish about selling their home, so he quickly added, we'll split the cost and we'll split the ownership. We could get it notarized, and if you help out, half of my share will be yours someday. Tina said so herself. She just wants me to have a peaceful life, away from all the gossip. I don't have money, Dad. I'm still in school. Who told you live streaming pays well? Tina, don't you dare talk about her like that. She's a decent person. It was her daughter who told me. You told me not to come home for fall break, so I could work. I spent the break standing for 15 hours a day, moving boxes for $150 a day. What kind of money do you think I have from temp work? It's not even enough to pay off your credit card. Jessica kept her gaze fixed on the tree. What else could she say but I don't have money? She didn't know which was the bigger disaster, that he was selling their last home or that he was about to take on more debt. This Tina woman was ambitious. Compared to her, the previous girlfriend seemed almost benevolent. At least she'd only taken the smaller property. This one wanted their current home and wanted him to go into debt. Buying a new house in a good school district. Everyone in the country knew the housing market was tanking, and her father decides now is the time to buy. When she was a kid, there was no school district for her. She took an hour-long bus ride to school every day. Now he was buying a house for someone else's granddaughter. He was probably telling himself it was a great investment, that the value was guaranteed to go up. You don't even work, she thought with a surge of fury. And now, in your old age, you suddenly think you're going to strike it rich. Dad, have you already picked out the house? We have. It's a pre-owned place. Tina felt bad about me spending too much, so she said we don't need to renovate. We could just move our furniture in. It's not big, just 2 bedrooms, but it's downtown in the right school district. 2 bedrooms? Where am I supposed to stay when I come home? You just said Tina is moving in with her granddaughter. I won't even have a place to sleep, and you're telling me half the house will be mine someday? Which half? Warren Monroe was momentarily stunned. He stammered, "You're only home for a few days a year. You can share with her granddaughter. The girl's still in school. It's too hard for her to commute from far away. And the house will be yours after I'm gone. Why are you so ungrateful? Already eyeing my things before I'm even dead." The accusation seemed to restore his confidence. He remembered something else. Tina is so thoughtful. She's even looking out for your reputation. She doesn't want her own daughter to know she's contributing to the house, because then her daughter will just ask for money. She's doing this because she genuinely wants to build a life with me. We'll tell everyone that you bought the house for us as a gift. Dad, I'm a student. How could I afford to buy you a house? You're selling our home. Isn't that enough for your half? Our place is old and small. Even at 1,000 square feet, it'll only sell for about 60 grand. The place we're looking at is in a great location. It's over 150 grand for 800 square feet. We each need to put in 75. Plus, I have to buy new appliances, of course. I'm the man. I'll get 60 from selling the house, and Tina will help me borrow another 20,000. She'll put in her 75. And since the house is officially a gift from you, you'll be the one taking out the loan. So that was it. Her dad had come to tell her their home was being sold. She no longer had a place to live, and she was now $20,000 in debt. Huh. Jessica suddenly hated the fact that she was educated. If she hadn't gone to college, she might have just gone home with a knife and stabbed her foolish father and the unseen Tina. You want to build a life together? Fine. Go die together. She hadn't eaten since her early morning shift. There was food in her backpack. Her hand was shaking too violently to get it out. She turned to fumble with the zipper and saw someone rounding the corner of the path, walking toward them. He was wearing a white t-shirt and black sweatpants, carrying a backpack, looking clean and fresh as he approached her. He looked like he'd just come from a run and a shower. His hair was still slightly damp, and his skin had a healthy, post-exercise flush. He was clean-cut, young, 21, maybe 5'9", and handsome. A solid 8 out of 10, with no bad habits to speak of. The sight of this well-put-together young man walking toward them made Warren Monroe pause. For a fleeting moment, a flicker of shame silenced him. He knew, deep down, that this wasn't right, but a little bit of flattery was always enough to convince him otherwise. He was a man who cared about appearances, always dressed neatly. He didn't have the weathered look of Sean's dad, the look of a man who worked with his hands. Warren's concerns were entirely superficial. Leo hadn't expected to walk into this. Rationally, he should have turned and left. Family drama was the messiest kind. Even a president could have terrible parents. It's not like you could just disown them. Society only pities the weak. When a deadbeat parent gets old and sick, everyone expects the children to step up. You're so successful, and you won't even care for your own father? You have no humanity. Morality was a cage for good people. Leo was too young to have encountered this level of family dysfunction. His own grandparents were fair, his parents were hardworking, and while his aunts and uncles had their minor squabbles, there was no real toxicity. But Jessica's father, this felt like accidentally inhaling a cockroach. Swallowing it was disgusting, but trying to cough it up might leave half of it behind, scarring you for life. So Leo walked forward. Seeing him approach, Warren shut his mouth. Leo came over and saw Jessica's hand was shaking so badly she couldn't open her backpack. He reached out, gently took the bag from her, and unzipped it. It was heavy, like it had a brick inside. He saw a plastic bag with 4 cold, sweet dinner rolls and a bottle of water. Leo pulled a wet wipe from his own backpack and handed it to her. Jessica's hands trembled as she took it, her eyes red-rimmed. "Babe, I've been looking all over for you," Leo said, his voice calm and steady. "Let's go sit down over there." Nearby, under a large tree, was a stone table surrounded by stone stools, the ground blanketed in fallen leaves. Warren didn't know who this kid was, but he looked sharp and well off. And he'd called his daughter Babe. So the little brat had a boyfriend, a rich one at that. And she had the nerve to say she had no money? Tina was right. Kids these days were all selfish. You had to look out for number one. Jessica was mortified. She wanted to slap herself. Why had she let her father on campus? Why did Leo have to see this pathetic side of her life? She hung her head, silently clutching the wet wipe. She was so numb she barely registered Leo calling her babe. The despair was overwhelming. Was it the house being sold, the new debt, or Leo witnessing it all that was worse? She didn't know. When they reached the stone table, Leo chivalrously wiped down the dusty, leaf-covered stools for them. Warren sat. He watched as the young man took the bag of rolls from his daughter's backpack, handed one to her, and then took one for himself. Warren was about to wave it away, say he'd already eaten, but the kid popped the roll into his own mouth. He even produced a travel mug from his bag, taking sips of water as he ate, his movements slow and surprisingly elegant. I was starving, couldn't find you anywhere, Leo said. Knew you'd have something for me. Thanks, babe. Jessica took huge, dry bites of the roll, her head bowed. Warren couldn't stand it. Someone's talking to you, he snapped at her. Have some manners. Don't blame her, sir, Leo interjected quickly. She's mad at me. I was just listening to what you were saying, and I completely support you. Buying a house with Tina is a great idea. A handsome, youthful guy like you. Tina must be crazy about you to want to build a life together. As Leo spoke, he looked directly at Warren. The older man, who had been sizing him up, found himself warming to the kid. He was handsome, well-dressed, and had a forthright gaze. After a moment, Warren even felt his daughter wasn't good enough for him. She was just like her mother, an ungrateful brat. This kid, though, was sincere. He didn't just like his daughter. He seemed to respect him, too, and he understood. Tina really was a good woman, who loved him for him, not for his money. Sir, you should help me convince her, Leo continued, his eyes fixed on Warren. Yesterday, I told her I wanted to buy her a car, and she actually got mad at me. Ugh, a car. Warren's voice trembled. This kid really was rich. Buying his girlfriend a car while still in school? His daughter had hit the jackpot, and she claimed to be broke. Yeah, Jessica's a simple girl. She doesn't know much about cars, Warren said, puffing out his chest. What kind of car were you thinking of buying? How much? I used to run a shipping company, you know? I could give you some advice. Leo kept his gaze locked on Warren. The German brands are old news. EVs are what's in right now. I was thinking of getting her a Lucid Air. It's only about $90,000. Warren felt a prickle of doubt. He thought the top-tier Lucid was more than that, but he wasn't sure. He'd overheard a poker buddy bragging about his. But 90 grand was still a hell of a lot of money. That's so expensive. Isn't that a bit much for a student? Not really. I've already got it all figured out. Babe could take out some online loans. She's so beautiful. She could just post some nice photos and apply to a few different places. We'll piece it together. Now Warren was really confused. You're getting her a car, but you want her to pay for it? Sir, you're looking at it all wrong. Of course, I'm not making her buy it herself. We're splitting it 50-50. She can get about 20 grand from online lenders, and I'll help her borrow another 10,000 from a private lender I know. The interest rate is a little high, but that's okay. She can work hard and pay it off. Of course, she doesn't have a license, so the car will have to be in my name. But you can rest assured, sir, my feelings for her are genuine. We can even get it notarized. The more Warren listened, the more wrong it sounded. His hand started to itch. He wanted to hit someone, but the young man's sincere gaze held him in place. Jessica, who had been choking down her roll as if trying to suffocate herself, nearly did choke when she heard Leo's speech. Warren finally processed it. Wait a minute, a Lucid Air is at least 80 grand. What are you contributing? You're making my daughter pay for the whole thing, calling it a gift, and putting it in your name? Why don't you just rob her? Sir, you misunderstand me. You're selling your 1,000-square-foot home to buy an 800-square-foot one in a better school district, but you're still 20,000 short and have to take out a loan. Isn't that the same thing? How come when you do it, it's true love, but when we do it, it's not? My feelings for Babe are even more sincere than Tina's are for you. Last time she worked so hard she got an ulcer, I personally brought her hot water and watched her drink it. I even bought her some herbal supplements. She felt better right away and went back to work. As he spoke, Leo took the water bottle from Jessica's bag and handed it to her. Her shoulders were shaking. She took a sip, forcing the dry roll down her throat. She lifted her head. Dad, since you're selling the house anyway, and as you can see, my boyfriend wants to buy me a car. I want to be like Tina, an independent, strong woman. We'll split it fair and square. He says the car is 90,000 and part of the house is mine. You're selling it for 60, so just give me 30. I'll take out some online loans for another 15, and we can buy the car together. It won't be in my name, but I trust him. I know he loves me and wouldn't cheat me. Warren was stunned by his daughter's stupidity. She'd gone to college, and she was still falling for a scam like this? Buying a car for tens of thousands of dollars that wasn't even in her name? He didn't need a degree to know this was a con artist. He was furious. Warren was a man who bullied the weak and feared the strong. The young man in front of him stared at him with unnerving sincerity, and while he talked, his hand idly moved to the edge of the stone table. Right in front of Warren, he broke off a corner of the stone and crumbled it in his hand. A gust of wind blew the stone dust into Warren's eyes. He flinched, rubbing them. The kid was instantly on his feet, grabbing Warren's hand in a grip of apology. Sir, I'm so sorry. I've been strong since I was a kid, always breaking things. Did that dust get in your eye? Are you okay? I'm so sorry. Warren felt his arm being squeezed in a vice. The pressure intensified. Let go, he grunted. Let me go. Sir, why don't you forget about buying a house back home? Leo said, his grip loosening slightly, his expression one of pure sincerity. The housing market is down everywhere. It's not a good investment. You should buy a place here, near the university. It's cheaper, and it's far away, so your relatives can't gossip about Tina anymore. Tina is hardworking and frugal. She can make money anywhere. You're selling your house and taking on debt just to scrape together 75 grand, while she can easily come up with that much herself. If you move here, the house can be in Babe's name. That way Tina's daughter won't find out she has money. Tina can work, and I'll hang out with you. We can go fishing, play cards. The fish in the reservoir here are huge. For some reason, Warren Monroe felt a flicker of temptation. For 75 grand here, you could get a 1,200 square foot place with a yard, Leo continued. Don't even sell your house back home. Tina has the money, right? She could buy it outright. She can work and earn money, and we'll go fishing. Babe is smart. Let her stay in school, go to grad school. With a higher degree, she'll earn even more. The four of us can have a great life together. But Tina probably wouldn't agree. Warren hesitated. Her daughter is back home. Sir, you're a handsome and charming man. Plenty of women like you. I'm sure some of your poker buddies have their eye on you, right? If Tina doesn't step up, she'll lose you. Look at me. I'm with Babe because she's a hard worker. I wouldn't be interested otherwise. This idea that the man has to pay for everything is outdated. Look at me. Everything I'm wearing was bought for me by a woman. My mom bought my clothes. Another woman bought my shoes. What has Tina bought for you since you've been together? Warren thought about it. Nothing. Not a single thing. In fact, he bought her a gold necklace just last week. Gold was expensive right now. Tina had said buying other things was a waste, but gold holds its value. Thinking about it now, Warren felt a seed of doubt. But he still mumbled, we're older, it's different. We just want a quiet life. Warren was lazy, vain, and easily swayed. He'd come to school mostly because he was afraid his daughter would make a scene and he'd lose face with the neighbors. Now, looking at this handsome young man, he thought, if I had a son, he'd be this age. A son would be more capable. He couldn't rely on his daughter after she got married. What the kid was saying actually made some sense. But wait, no matter how nice he was, this kid was a freeloader living off his daughter. And they'd have to support him, too. No. Warren shook his head, clearing the fog. Leo pulled him back down to the stool. Sir, we were just kidding, he said with a laugh. I have my own car and my own place. He took out his phone and showed Warren photos of a condo deed and a car registration, both in the name of Leo Foster. I would never let Babe work to support me. I just felt like what you were saying didn't sound right. See, when I said the same thing about her, you thought she was being scammed. You were worried. But when it's happening to you, you don't see it. You're too close to the situation. Why don't you go back and test Tina? Ask her if she's willing to come here and buy a house in Babe's name. If she truly loves you for you, she'll agree. If not, then she probably has other motives. Seeing the deed and the registration, Warren was dumbfounded again. The kid really was rich. He knew it from the start, so he was just teasing him. Kids these days. With his wealth confirmed, Warren's respect for him grew, though he still felt a little resentful. You kids. I'm too old for these games. By the way, sir, Leo added, Babe is very proud. I know she has credit card debt, and I want to help her pay it off, but she won't let me. She said the card is with you. If you give it to me, I'll clear the balance. They'll just give her a supplementary card from my account. She can use it however she wants, and I'll handle the bill every month. Warren blinked. Was this really happening? He looked at the young man again, saw the sincere, love-filled eyes, and knew, as a man of the world, that this was real. He pulled the card out of his wallet. Someone was offering to pay off a debt. You don't say no. After a whirlwind of emotional manipulation, Leo finally managed to send the thoroughly confused Warren Monroe on his way. On the bus back to the train station, Warren couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The kid was so persuasive. Everything he said had sounded so believable. It wasn't until he was on the train that he realized. He didn't even buy me lunch. And where was the supplementary card he'd promised his daughter? Jessica walked her father to the bus stop. Leo hadn't dared to look at her the entire time, too embarrassed about calling her Babe. He had focused all his energy on her father. The man was handsome for his age, in a slick, slightly smarmy way. Leo had never encountered a parent like that before. It seemed the man had fewer brains than Leo did before his own intellect stat went up. It was true what they said. If the parent has no street smarts, The child has to develop enough for two. Jessica's personality was a direct result of her father. Leo felt his handling of the situation was clumsy, but with something this messy, there was no perfect solution. He could only de-escalate it for the moment. The rest was up to her. He still had her father's credit card. He asked the system to check her current net worth. Target, Jessica Monroe. Current assets, $4, $774.60. He remembered just a month ago, it had been close to $7,000 in the red. This girl was a machine. She had earned over $2,000 in a month while being a full-time student. After graduation, she'd be a powerhouse. A person with that kind of drive could do anything if she could just bring herself to be ruthless. Leo thought for a moment and decided to pay it off. He'd already helped her this much. Leaving it half done was pointless. Money was her most immediate problem. He knew she had the ability to earn it back, so he wasn't worried about her defaulting. Since his intellect had gone up, he'd noticed he'd become colder in some ways, more calculating. Jessica put her father on the bus. A few minutes later, she received a text notification. It wasn't a purchase alert. Your Bank of America card ending in 0987 has received a payment of $4, $774.60 on October. XX from external account. Payer, Leo Foster. Payer account ending in 2089. Your current statement has been paid in full. On the train home, the more Warren Monroe thought about it, the more he felt like he'd been had. The train car was crowded, people all around him scrolling on their phones. He usually avoided using data, but he glanced at the phone of the woman next to him and saw a familiar face. Excuse me, miss, he said. What was it you were just watching? Can I see? The middle-aged woman looked at him. He was clean-cut and not bad-looking, so she held up her phone. There on the screen was the same young man who had just been holding his hand under a tree, telling him he was joking. The young man was preparing tea. Who is this? A celebrity? Warren's voice trembled with excitement. The kid hadn't been lying. He really was rich. He was just playing a prank. Warren saw a beautiful future unfurling before him. Fishing, playing cards, living a life of leisure, with Tina by his side. He's some kind of influencer, I think, the woman said. Pretty popular lately. I heard he's in a TV show now, too. Her daughter was also a fan. They both liked him. He seemed like a good kid, and he could sing. He's my daughter's boyfriend, Warren declared proudly. The woman stifled a laugh. Her own daughter claimed every handsome celebrity was her husband. This guy was probably just delusional. Seeing her disbelief, Warren insisted. I'm serious. He held my hand and called me sir. He calls my daughter babe. To prove it, he decided to video call his daughter and have her send a picture of them together. She answered. Her face was tear-stained, the background a chaotic mess. She must be sad to see him go. He remembered how she used to cry when he dropped her off at school as a little girl. She was a good, filial daughter. Honey, you never told me Leo was a celebrity, he said, beaming. Did he give you the supplementary card? I just saw him on someone's phone. What a coincidence. Ha ha ha. Send me a picture of you two so I can show people. Jessica had been crying ever since the text message arrived. She'd been squatting on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. She felt like a failure, a disgrace. She didn't want his money, but she needed it. It could have been from anyone else, some fat, old man she wouldn't care. But not him, not Leo. Then her father called. She answered, looking at his smiling face through her tear-blurred vision as he spoke cheerfully. Did he give you the card? He's a star. Ha ha ha. Send me a photo. Jessica's sobs grew louder. In that moment, she wished she had a knife. She had no right to dream, not with a father like this. She deserved to die for even thinking she could have something good. Dad, there's no card, she choked out. You know why I didn't want his help? You just gave him the card anyway. He wanted to help pay it off, so he checked the spending history. He found the hotel charges from when I was with someone else. He broke up with me. He said I lied to him. The smile on Warren Monroe's face slowly froze. He wanted to say she was lying, but she was a wreck, tears and snot streaming down her face. You what? You were always calling me a tramp, just like my mother, weren't you? Well, you were right. I'm that kind of person. And not only did he break up with me, he wants all the money I spent back. It's over $10,000. You help me spend some of that, Dad. Can you sell the house and give me 10 grand? He said if I don't pay him back, he'll post the hotel records on the school for him. I don't want to be humiliated. Warren's hands were shaking. In your dreams. Why don't you just go die? You want money. Dad, if you don't give me the money, I'll go find Tina. I've already lost my dignity. I don't care about living anymore. With that, Jessica hung up. She went to the bathroom and washed her face. Her eyes were still puffy and red. After a long moment of hesitation, she made a video call to her uncle. Her father's siblings didn't interact with him much anymore. He was too much trouble. But they had all chipped in to buy her a laptop for college. She hated asking them for anything, feeling like her family was a parasite, but she had no choice. Her uncle answered. "Uncle," she began, her voice thick with tears. "Dad came to see me. He said he's in a lot of debt, and he has to sell the house, but it's still not enough. He needs another $20,000. He came to me for money. I'm a student. Where am I supposed to get that? Does he want me to take out predatory loans for him? Uncle, what do I do? He said if he can't pay it back, they'll break his legs." Fat tears rolled down her cheeks. "What do I do? He told me if I can't get the money, I should go work for some friend of Tina's in another state. He said it's a job that pays 20 grand up front. I'm so scared, Uncle." She cried, gasping for breath. The tears were real. She wanted to wail, to scream at the absurdity of her fate, her life, all of it. Her uncle was stunned. He knew his brother was a mess, but he hadn't heard about any new debts. All he'd heard was that he was bragging about his new girlfriend. And now he was harassing his daughter for money? He was going to sell the last property they had. "Jessica, calm down, don't cry," her uncle said firmly. "Don't you give him any money. We'll handle this. You just focus on your classes." She called her other uncle, and then her aunt, crying her way through each call. Afterward, she washed her face again. She called the bank and canceled the credit card. The card she could never seem to pay off was finally gone. On the bus back to campus, she watched the yellowing leaves outside the window. Her reflection stared back, her eyes swollen. She sent him a text. "I will pay back the money you lent me within 6 months, plus 5% interest. Thank you, Leo." At the same moment Leo received the text, the mechanical voice sounded in his head. "Congratulations, host. Your efforts with the Silver Tier single woman, Jessica Monroe, have been successful. Favorability has reached 80. Target has been upgraded from Bronze Tier to Silver Tier. Please continue to work hard, strive for excellence, and climb to new heights. As the target's favorability has reached 80, host may add 1 attribute point." This was the first time a target's tier had increased. Silver Tier. That was impressive. Reading Jessica's text, Leo felt a stir of admiration. Only she would offer to pay interest. 5% was generous. A 3-year CD was only paying a little over 2% these days. And most students wouldn't even think of it. Getting the principal back when you lend someone money is a win in itself. Her favorability had been stubbornly low before, and now it had shot straight to 80. Even if she never paid him back, the attribute point alone made it a worthwhile investment. But thinking about her situation, her awful father, it was suffocating. If he'd grown up like that, his personality would surely be twisted. Leo opened his attribute panel. Physique, 7, +1/10, above average. Permanent buff, enhanced strength. Continue a balanced workout routine, and you'll have a slight edge over most humans. Intellect, 8, ±1/10, above average. First loves make you do stupid things. It's part of the experience. Vibe, 7, ±1/10. Your emotional state is volatile, swinging between high and low. Integrity, 8, -1/10, above average. You are determined to be a responsible man, but life presents many strange temptations that test you, often without you even realizing it. Appearance, 8, ±1/10, temporary, above average. Today you look handsome, full of youthful charm, earnest and brave. Lifespan, 21/59. Life treats all beings equally. Many chase youth, but all will grow old. Learn to face it with peace. The lifespan stat had appeared after his favorability with Sean broke 90, but the year he'd lost during his bout of depression hadn't come back. He decided to put the new point into physique. He'd worry about lifespan later. Both physique and vibe were at 7, while the others were at 8. That stunt with the stone table had actually hurt his hand a bit. Luckily, the stone was old and weathered. And when he'd gripped her father's arm, it had worked because the man wasn't a manual laborer. Against someone who was, he'd have been outmatched. His own hand was still sore. To deal with scumbags, you needed strength, not just reason. He was going to be on a film set soon. And while director Hayes' sets were known for being professional, the fact that a harmonious work environment was something to be praised meant that most sets were probably a mess. He allocated the point. Physique, 8, +1/10, good. Permanent buff, enhanced strength. Continue a balanced workout routine. In the human world, you're officially one of the strong ones. You might not have a six-pack, but touch your abs and you're in for surprise. He instantly felt a surge of power, like his posture had improved and his whole body was humming with energy. He tried to study in a new classroom, but after the morning's drama, he couldn't focus. The vibe was off. In his old spot, he could look out the window at the same tree, the same power line. Here, the window just faced a brick wall covered in dead ivy. He used his time dilation buff, but his mind kept wandering back to the absurd, infuriating encounter. He desperately wanted to vent to someone, but it was Jessica's family business. He couldn't just gossip about it. He felt antsy and frustrated. In the end, he got less than 30 minutes of actual studying done. Deciding a workout was the best cure for a troubled mind. He packed his bag. On his way back to the dorm, he got a call from his uncle. "Leo, what are you up to?" "Just finished studying, heading back to my dorm to go for a swim," Leo answered, feeling a comforting warmth at his uncle's familiar, if slightly childish, nickname for him. It was a relief to have normal relatives. Clay Foster had been meaning to call his nephew for a while. He'd taken Leo's stock tip, bought in, and then promptly forgotten about it. His private savings had grown steadily. Then, around fall break, the market went wild. The stock he'd bought shot up, hitting the circuit breaker day after day. When other stocks crashed, his dipped slightly before roaring back up. His secret stash had broken $1 million. He wasn't greedy. He'd heard about a college classmate in finance who had turned $20,000 into $8 million in under a year, but was now in a state of extreme anxiety, afraid to lose it all. $1 million was more than enough for him. So, even though the stock was still climbing, he sold off $600,000, leaving his initial investment. With the profits, he bought his father-in-law a top-of-the-line massage chair, his wife the Chanel bag she'd been admiring for months, and his mother-in-law a $1,000 cashmere scarf. Then he confessed his secret stock trading to his wife, who already knew. He gave her the remaining $500,000, and she took $300,000. In return, his father-in-law pulled some strings and got him a new research grant. The money, when spent, had brought so much goodwill. His wife, Melinda, had then arranged and paid for a full medical checkup for Leo's parents. She'd bought his dad a new electric scooter, and his mom a beautiful cashmere coat. A son's filial piety is one thing, but a daughter-in-law's is what really counts. After all of it, Clay felt he owed his nephew a proper thank you. "I heard you're trying out painting, and even interning on a film set," he said. "That's great. You're young, try everything. If it doesn't work out, you've always got your uncle." After they hung up, Leo saw a notification. His uncle had transferred him $5,000. "Clay Foster, made a little something thanks to you. I know you probably have a lot of expenses. Consider this a thank you fee, or just some pocket money from your uncle." Leo stared at the screen. He'd just spent over $4,000, and now his uncle had sent him $5,000. It was a wonderful feeling. Family. "Leo, thanks, uncle." A giant, goofy kissing lips emoji. Clay Foster. "You punk." Good people are defined by the bad. Without villains, heroes wouldn't seem so heroic. At that moment, Leo felt his uncle was the greatest man in the world. One emoji wasn't enough. He sent several more. The fact that his uncle had the discipline to cash out while the stock was still rising was a sign of true wisdom. 90% of people couldn't do that. Leo knew he couldn't. He grabbed his swim trunks from the dorm and headed to the campus pool. After getting to know the janitor who cleaned it, he felt better about swimming there. It was cleaned, the filtration system was new, and students were generally respectful. Not everyone could have a private pool like Stella. The moment he dove in, the water enveloping him, he felt a sense of release. He let his body go limp, floating in the center of the pool, and the tension melted away. With his new physique stat, he felt like he could swim for hours. When he was finally exhausted, his mind was completely blank, all the negative emotions washed away. He felt like a new man. He took a quick selfie, water dripping from his hair, and sent it to Stella. It was a little bit thirsty, but he thought he looked kind of sexy. Shoulders up, no nipples showing. She'd probably like it. People in love send these kinds of pictures to each other. Stella had been at home for the past 2 days. Her mother, Victoria, was in a state of psychological turmoil over the 2 paintings now hanging in their house, a constant $500,000 reminder of her misjudgment. To make matters worse, her socialite friends were now clamoring to come over for a viewing. Stella opened the message from Leo while sitting right next to her mother. Victoria, whose senses were on high alert, glanced over and saw the picture of a handsome, dripping wet college student on the screen. Tramp, she thought, scandalized. Sending my daughter such indecent photos. Stella's face flushed. A smile played on her lips, a dimple appearing in her right cheek. She quickly locked her phone. Victoria seethed silently. Her jaw ached with repressed fury. After teasing her mom for a bit, Stella slipped away to the kitchen. Leaning against the island, she pulled out her phone to reply to Leo. She sent a sticker of a shy doll peeking through its fingers. Stella was sitting right next to my mom. Leo, fresh from his own shower, felt a wave of social death. Surely her mom hadn't seen it? Then again, his own mom was definitely a phone peeker. Well, at least it was a clean photo. Leo, Sticker of a bunny tripping, sticker of a blushing strawberry. Stella. Sticker of a character laughing with hands on hips. It's fine. She's easy to appease. She talks a big game, but she always comes around. Stella brewed a cup of silver needle tea, her mother's favorite, and brought it to her. She sat on the opposite end of the couch and, to prevent another awkward incident, silenced her notifications. A moment later, she saw a red dot appear on her messages app. She opened it. It was another post-shower selfie from Leo, his hair still dripping, lips red, eyes glistening. A drop of water was tracing a path down his neck. Oh, good grief. She glanced at her mother, who was sipping her tea, oblivious. Under the guise of drinking her own tea, Stella quickly snapped a photo in reply. It was an old one of her blow-drying her hair, but she was wearing a bathrobe. Leo saw the photo and nearly tripped over his own feet. Holy! His face went beet red. The robe was tied tightly, the collar high. Nothing was showing, but it was a bathrobe. Stella's retaliation was swift and devastatingly effective. He surrendered completely. His exhausted legs suddenly felt full of energy again. He ran to the cafeteria to pick up lunch for Jordan, who, after one day of hard labor, had rediscovered his profound love for video games. The photo had completely overridden his physical exhaustion. By the time he got back to the dorm and sat down to eat, a deep soreness settled into his bones. His arms felt like lead. While they ate, Jordan was scrolling through the campus forum. "Check this out," he said, annoyed. Someone posted about the English department beauty getting picked up by an old man. Suspected sugar daddy. The pictures are just of her getting into a sedan at the campus gate. If he was her sugar daddy, wouldn't he have a better car than a Toyota Camry? This is obviously a smear campaign. Leo glanced at the screen. "That's her dad," he said awkwardly. Jordan, who usually would have jumped into the comments to argue, just reported the post instead. Fighting with him just gives them more clicks. "I thought you had a big crush on her," Leo said, curious. "Don't you want to help her out? I know she's always short on cash." Jordan looked at him like he was crazy. "No, I admire her work ethic. I respect her hustle. But actually date her? No way. I want to see her succeed, climb to the top, become a star. It's like being a fan, you know? You root for them from a distance. Being in a relationship would just get in the way of my gaming." Leo had to admit, he had a point. Jessica's hometown was only a 2.5-hour train ride away. Her father, Warren, fumed the entire way back. He went straight from the station to his favorite card room. When he got there, he saw Tina laughing with Larry, the same guy who'd offered to put down $100,000 for her. Larry had his hand on her arm. Warren's simmering anger boiled over. He started an argument, and it quickly escalated. Just as things were getting heated, Jessica's two uncles and her aunt arrived, summoned by her earlier calls. Seeing his family as backup, Warren grew bolder. A full-blown fight broke out. In the chaos, someone tripped him. There was a sickening crack. His leg was broken. His brother quickly told the owner to turn off the security cameras. By the time the police arrived, it was impossible to tell who had done what. At the hospital, his sister grabbed Tina's arm. "My brother always said how kind and hard-working you are," she said with a saccharine smile. "We'll be counting on you to take care of him during this time." "I have to work," Tina protested. "Don't worry," her sister-in-law said. "My mother will be here to help. He's always been her precious baby boy." That afternoon, Jessica got a call from her aunt. "Your dad had a little accident. Broke his leg. Don't worry, your grandmother and his friend are taking care of him. You just focus on school." Then, her aunt sent her $300. It was, as always, $100 from each of the siblings. For the first time in her adult life, Jessica had disposable income. She stared at the money. What would she do with it? After a long moment, she went to the campus convenience store and bought 2 bags of Lay's potato chips and a bottle of Coke. All she wanted was to spend one quiet afternoon reading a novel and eating junk food in peace. After lunch, Leo took a short rest. He activated his time dilation buff, so what felt like a quick nap was actually nearly 2 hours of deep sleep. He'd been running on pure adrenaline, completely drained. He woke up feeling fully restored, like a teenager who could get wired for days from a single PG-13 photo of his girlfriend in a bathrobe. The afternoon's agenda was painting. Afterwards, he'd walk Moose, then pick up Sean with the guys. Alex had said he'd be back and could drive. Jordan was coming along too, having been cooped up all day. They'd all go get Sean and grab a late dinner together. With Sean gone, the hot water kettle in their dorm room had been collecting dust for days. When Leo arrived at the art studio, Dr. Croft had already been painting for hours. She'd come straight from breakfast. Had she eaten lunch? Probably. She couldn't quite remember, but she wasn't hungry now. She drank what felt like a gallon of herbal medicine every day. Hunger wasn't really an issue. Leo noticed that, for once, Dr. Croft's hair wasn't a chaotic mess. She had it tied back with a colorful striped headband. She wore a grayish-blue striped long-sleeve shirt and gray sweatpants, the blocky pattern matching her headband. It was a surprisingly stylish look. You never had to worry about an artist's color coordination. Even their messes had a strange, compelling harmony. Honestly, Dr. Croft was a beautiful woman, with the striking features and crisp, charming southern accent that gave her a distinct advantage in the art world. Seeing Leo walk in, she gestured at him. "Lift up your shirt." Leo froze, his face flushing. "What are you thinking about?" she drawled, amused. "I need to see if you have any muscle. It changes how I'd approach a figure study." He hesitantly lifted the hem of his t-shirt. Dr. Croft chuckled. "All that pale skin, what's there to be shy about? You're more delicate than I am." Then she reached out and gave his stomach a light pat. It was solid. She patted it again. Still solid. Damn. Now, it was her turn to blush, and she quickly stepped back. College kids these days were really something else. "All right, let's get to it," she said, turning back to her canvas. Leo started setting up his own station. He was still focused on portraits. But who to paint today? He sat in the studio, the lazy afternoon light filtering in, dappling the rough gray concrete of the windowsill. Outside, the thick trunk of an old tree stood guard. In that quiet moment, an image of Jessica Monroe, the patron saint of side hustles, flashed into his mind. He saw her holding a bottle of water, taking a swig to force down a cold, sweet dinner roll she'd pulled from her backpack. She looked a little worn down, a strand of hair stuck to her cheek. But when she lifted her head, her eyes were blazing. They were red-rimmed, glistening with unshed tears, but they shone with a fierce, stunning light. She'd been voted one of the most beautiful girls in their department, though she wasn't conventionally pretty. Her features weren't perfectly symmetrical, but her gaze had always been extraordinary, ambitious, bright, relentlessly focused. In that moment, he was remembering. However, her gaze had seemed to shatter. It was still bright, but like broken glass, a scattered, brilliant light that promised to draw blood if you touched it. It was a look that had burned itself into his memory. As the image surfaced, his hand moved on its own, charcoal sketching the lines onto the canvas. People usually described eyes as being like stars, or jewels, or the moon. But Jessica's, in that moment, were like shards of glass or splinters of ice. They held a kind of frenzied beauty. He'd never quite gotten her appeal before. Always figuring her popularity was just her mentality. She wasn't someone who held up to close scrutiny. She was just good at styling herself, at playing up her strengths. But in that one instant, he'd felt it. He'd sensed the wildness in her, a beauty that beckoned from the edge of a decadent, ruinous abyss. If you'd smeared a little blood on her hands and face, placed her at a crime scene, she would have been breathtaking. Leo wasn't overthinking it. He was just painting what he saw in his mind's eye. The mottled red brick of the old building, layers of fallen leaves, the bottom ones trampled in mud, the top one still a vibrant yellow and red. The ancient tree blocking the sun, the worn stone table. Her, looking up at something in the distance, her eyes a chaotic storm of love, hate, fury, murderous intent, and defeat, all pulling her apart. And yet, there was a smile on her lips. Recalling the details, he remembered she had, in fact, been smiling. Her skin was pale, her lips a stark red. The smile was almost docile, wild and docile. What color were her eyes when they were swimming in tears? It was like on a school field trip when he was a kid. His teacher had taken them to a canyon with a creek. In the afternoon sun, the water made every stone on the creek bed glitter like a treasure, tempting them to jump in. But once you picked a stone out and let it dry, it was just an ordinary rock, no different from the gravel on the sidewalk. That light, though, it was just like that, shifting, serene, profound, and cold. Leo was completely absorbed, so much so that he didn't notice Dr. Croft had stopped painting to stretch her neck, watching him. Dr. Croft's chronic headache was flaring up. A sharp, localized pain throbbed at a point at the base of her skull. She'd had MRIs for it before. They hadn't solved the headaches, but they had found and removed a benign tumor behind her eye. Chiropractic adjustments and acupuncture offered temporary relief, but after a few days of intense painting, the pain was back with a vengeance. She was starting to understand why the ancient warlord Chow had wanted to execute his physician. The pain was so bad she wanted to execute herself. No doctor could save her, but maybe some artisanal spicy beef jerky could. When she ate it, the heat was enough to make her forget the throbbing in her head. The pain made her tilt her head to the side, stretching the muscles forcefully. She held the awkward pose, looking a bit like a stroke patient, and watched Leo work. And watching him, she became mesmerized. Whoa, she thought, nearly overstretching and giving herself an actual stroke. She quickly straightened her head with an audible crack. A shiver ran down her spine. The sound was loud enough that Leo looked up from his canvas, startled to see her mid-stretch. "Well, now look at you, Dr. Croft said, ignoring the noise. "Where'd you go for lessons? It's like you've had an epiphany. You've finally brought a person to life on the canvas. That look in her eyes. It's got so much soul. This piece is special, kid. You're improving by leaps and bounds. You've got real potential." Leo listened to her string of compliments, then stepped back to look at his own work. He genuinely couldn't believe it had come from his hands. He was starting to understand Dr. Croft's immersive process, the way you tuned out the wind, the sun, the hum of the lights, the entire world, and just listened to the voice in your head, painting the picture you saw inside. And this was the result. Holy crap, it was good. He turned to Dr. Croft with a sincere question. "So if I were to sell this, would anyone actually buy it? And for how much?" She shot the boy a look. He had no heart. Here was this beautiful, haunting portrait of a woman on the verge of breaking, and his first thought was about money. A painting that came from such a deep place should be something you wanted to keep. She rarely sold her own work unless the offer was just too obscene to refuse. "A newcomer's work is tough to sell," she explained. "Art students can sell pieces at fairs for a few hundred, maybe a couple thousand, depending on the size. Getting spotted by a patron is rare, like winning the lottery. You could also try to get it into a gallery show. If your piece hangs in a prestigious exhibit, a buyer might notice it. If you really want to sell this one, you can put in my upcoming show. I'd guess someone would probably pay $20,000 for it." Some collectors love spending that kind of money on pieces that catch their eye, just for the thrill of discovering a hidden gem. 20,000. Leo beamed. 1,000 words of praise didn't hit quite like a price tag. Having come this far, Leo realized he'd forgotten to set up his phone to record. What a waste. He wasn't even sure how he'd created this. It felt unrepeatable. An emotion is sharpest the first time you feel it. The second time, it's already faded. It's like a bar of soap. The scent is strongest when you first unwrap it, but eventually you get used to it and barely notice it anymore. To capture a fleeting sensory impulse is to make it eternal. To try and replicate, it is impossible. He'd been painting for a while, and his arm was starting to ache. And he was so young. This profession was brutal. If you succeeded, great. But if you didn't, you could work all day and not even make back the cost of your paints. Leo repositioned his phone and started recording. He set up a second phone as well, giving him 2 angles that could capture both himself and Dr. Croft. After a brief chat, they returned to their work. He was beginning to understand Dr. Croft's obsessive forget-to-eat-or-sleep painting style. His hand wanted to keep moving, his brain wanted to keep creating, and only the limits of his physical body were holding him back. He desperately wanted to finish this painting, or at least get a solid first draft done. But even that would likely take until nightfall. Seeing that Dr. Croft was already lost in her world, Leo activated the time dilation buff. He had to keep painting while the image in his mind was still this vivid. By tomorrow morning, it would have faded, the emotion dulled. Irreplaceable, unrecoverable. In the camera's view, he was now painting at quadruple speed. Leo decided to complete the body first, saving the eyes and lips for last. As he worked, he felt no sense of impropriety, only a profound reverence for his creation. He was a god, bestowing life upon the canvas. Even as he painted her chest, his mind was clear, his heart steady. He felt like a surgeon, the entire world draped off except for the small, exposed incision site. To a doctor, a chest, or a head was just another part of the body. Cut through the epidermis, then the next layer. Retractor. Suction. Locate the problem. Excise. Suture. His mind filled with minute details. A single strand of hair had fallen across her chest. Her long, silky hair, like that of a siren, would never stay perfectly in place. It would fall across her cheeks, her shoulders, her chest. He was adding his own interpretation now. The Jessica he was painting was wild and bewitching, with a core of ruthlessness, but her smile had to remain pure, docile. She must have practiced it for years. It was a fake smile, but so ingrained that most people would never notice the practiced, pleasant mask of a hustler. Her eyes betrayed her. As Leo worked, head down, the system's mechanical voice echoed in his mind. Host is advised to balance work and rest. You have exceeded today's painting quota. The host has grasped the true essence of painting, to paint with one's heart. Reward, buff, breakout star one day. Your efforts may not be immediately rewarded, but one day you will stun the world with your talent. Do not give up easily. Do not reject the hardworking version of yourself. Do not doubt yourself. Leo was so engrossed he barely registered the reward. He just kept painting. He was starting to feel the frustration of having only two hands. While painting her chest, he'd think of a detail on the hem of her shirt or on the crown of her head. To capture it all at once, he needed an octopus's arms. Maybe the best painters were king crabs, or maybe they were just the most delicious. He pressed on, his movements becoming more and more fluid. When he finally painted her eyes, the effect was so startling he almost jumped. It was incredible that he could convey a person's soul with just layers of pigment. It felt as if the real Jessica was standing right there. As he painted, he remembered another detail from that moment. Her shirt was damp. She had been crying for a long time before she looked up. He added a faint, dark patch to the fabric. When she looked at him, the emotion in her eyes was so raw, it was suffocating. Her lips were exceptionally red, but he needed them to be redder still. He mixed the most intense crimson he could, a color so deep it was almost black like blood. While painting, his mind had been a blank slate. But looking at the finished portrait, he was suddenly hit with a memory of her jumping out of the pool and throwing her arms around him. He'd held her, his heart pounding, thinking how forward and shameless she was. Back then, he only had eyes for Stella. Jessica was just a weird, chaotic distraction. He thought she was trying to test his loyalty, to seduce him. But her affinity score for him had never even broken 60. He had heroically resisted her advances. But if she had looked like this? Her eyes wanted to kill you, our lips smiled, so red and so crazed. She was fully clothed, not revealing anything. Yet this image was the most sexually charged thing he could imagine. A broken person being destroyed, laughing without a care in the world. It made you want to wrap your arms around her, to just hold her. The sudden thought was so bizarre it threw him off. It wasn't just a hug he imagined. It was a kiss. Her crimson lips, bleeding, breathless. Her long hair tangling with the buttons of his shirt. The image hit him so hard that as he was dabbing the last touch of scarlet on her lips, his other hand spasmed, sending a jar of red paint flying across the canvas. It was like being in the middle of a productive workday when someone dumps a can of Coke on your computer tower. The screen flickers and all your documents, all your presentations, vanish under a wave of brown fizz, gone forever. Leo was sure it wasn't just lust. He didn't normally have these thoughts about attractive women. It was just when he received an affinity score of 80 or higher from someone. He felt a strange compulsion to reciprocate. But to be painting her lips and suddenly imagine kissing her, tearing at clothes. And with her on top? What was wrong with him? Why was it always the woman on top? He had painted her chest with the piety of a monk. And now, was the painting ruined? A stunningly lifelike portrait of a wild, bewitching, yet docilely smiling girl now had a massive splash of red paint across her face and clothes. Leo stared, horrified. Dr. Croft looked up. She stared, her jaw dropping. Hot damn. I asked you to learn to paint, and you've gone straight to performance art. How did you know that all the truly unhinged painters, after finishing a piece, would just throw a bucket of paint on it? Of course, most of those who did it intentionally just ended up with a mess. But this, the sheer artistic power of this accidental act, was off the charts. Before, she thought it might fetch 20 grand. Now, she wouldn't even dare to name a price. A bloody girl needs blood. That final splash was a stroke of divine intervention. This painting, she knew with the certainty of a decades-long career, was going to be a breakout star. A single droplet of red paint trickled down from the corner of the girl's smiling mouth, erasing the last trace of artificiality from her expression. Seeing Leo reach for a cloth to wipe it, Dr. Croft yelled, "Don't touch it. Don't you dare. You hear me? Leave it exactly as it is. Let it dry." Leo thought the painting was ruined. His first instinct was to save it, grabbing a paper towel to see if he could somehow clean it up, though he knew it was probably hopeless. Each layer of paint left its mark. That rich, layered complexity was what gave a painting its soul. But his reaction was as automatic as trying to wipe up a spilled drink. The lesson to clean up your messes had been drilled into him too deeply. Dr. Croft's shout stopped him cold. Luckily, he wasn't one to act rashly. His hand froze, inches from the canvas. "Don't wipe it. It's better this way." Before the paint spilled, "It was a painting," she said, her voice filled with awe. "After the paint spilled, it's a work of art. Come over here. Stand where I am and look. You weren't supposed to view a painting up close. A little distance could reveal wonders." Leo moved to where Dr. Croft was standing, and he saw it. Before, he'd thought it was good, special even, but something had been missing. He couldn't put his finger on it. He had painted the scene exactly as he'd imagined it, but his expressive ability had its limits. But now, from this vantage point, the painting, splattered and stained with deep red paint, was breathtakingly beautiful. It had finally achieved that perfect, terrifying balance, Bewitching, crazed, docile, ruthless, and smiling, all at once. Every emotion was flawlessly integrated. The accidental splash of paint looked like slowly drying blood. Not too much, not too little, just right. It looked intentional. But if you tried to do it intentionally, you'd look like an idiot. No one pours soda on their computer just to achieve a beautifully flawed essay. They'd most likely just have a dead computer. Some things required a bit of chance. The accidental splatter had perfectly mimicked the spray of actual blood. If you threw paint on purpose, the force would be different, the landing points and thickness of the paint all wrong. A skilled detective could tell the difference at a crime scene. So could a neurotic artist. It was their job to be sensitive to such things. The accident had perfected the painting. He didn't even need to finish the lips. The smile he'd painted had been a little strange anyway. The stiff, docile, fake smile he remembered from that day. He could inject his own feelings into his work, but he couldn't completely deviate from reality. And the fake smile was real. Opposed, fake smile can look fine at first glance, but compare it to a genuine one, and the difference is stark. He had painted a girl with a soul full of turmoil and a fake smile on her face. The spilled red paint had covered that fakeness, obscuring the stiff muscles of her cheeks. Now, the painting was perfect, a true Bloody Mary. It even had a name. The background was fittingly decrepit, a little path behind an old academic building, a place so gloomy that even couples looking for a place to make out avoided it. She was the only one in the frame, but you could feel the presence of someone else, someone who was having a profound effect on her. Leo hadn't yet learned how to compose a multi-person scene. The spatial arrangement on a flat plane was still too difficult for him. For now, he could only manage detailed single portraits. The splattered paint had concealed all the painting's minor weaknesses, even bringing that fake smile to life. The first time Dr. Croft had seen it, she'd estimated some sucker might pay 20 grand for it, expressing emotion that clearly was the mark of a good piece. But now, looking at it again, she knew there would be a lot of suckers lining up to buy it. The price was anyone's guess. This was the kind of painting that could easily be hyped. Anyone with a bit of aesthetic sense would have been impressed by the original. But with the addition of the paint, it would stun the professionals. It was like cilantro. Some people love it, some people hate it, but everyone can recognize a truly gourmet dish when they taste one. The girl in the painting was wild and feral. Beautiful. Sexy. She looked like she just walked out of a zombie apocalypse. Great works of art often weren't just the result of the artist's effort. There was usually a healthy dose of luck involved. I'm submitting my work for an award soon, and I'll be holding a solo exhibition around the same time, Dr. Croft said. I'm calling dibs on this piece. I want to display it in my show. From now on, you can tell people you're my student. It wasn't that she wanted to steal his credit. It was just that an unknown artist had a much harder time making it. Being her student would open doors for him. Okay, thank you, Professor, Leo said. But Professor, what about portrait rights? How does that usually work? You'll need to get her consent. Displaying it in a gallery is a public act, and selling it is a commercial one, right? I understand. I'll handle the painting from here. Don't touch it. If you don't have a personal seal, just sign it for now. Leo didn't have a seal. His dad had one, but it was some cheap thing he bought somewhere. He thought for a moment and signed the corner with 2 letters. The name came to him in a flash. He thought it sounded sophisticated. Dr. Croft didn't care one way or the other. Artists often use pseudonyms. Some specialized in painting nudes of old men. A pseudonym was a social necessity. Same for writers. If your niche was erotica, a pen name could save you a lot of embarrassment. Her own work was quite conventional, so her art name was simple, Genevieve. With the painting's fate decided, Dr. Croft finally cracked a joke. You've got quite a few girls on your mind, don't you, kid? Yesterday's was so bright and lively, and today's is so dark and twisted. You better watch yourself. Leo just smiled. Following Professor Reed's instructions, he took Dr. Croft with him to walk Moose. When they went to pick up the dog, they ran into Paige Kennedy. Dr. Croft, true to her artistic nature, had a weakness for beauty. The moment she saw the bubbly, fair-skinned, curly-haired girl, whose innocence hadn't yet been tainted by higher education, she was smitten. Paige was an extrovert and wasn't the least bit shy. When she heard Dr. Croft was Leo's painting teacher, she got excited and asked if she could have her portrait painted. She didn't want to learn to paint. She just wanted to be in a painting, looking pretty. Dr. Croft adored the girl's straightforwardness. She was just like the girls from back home, bold, passionate, and adorable. Paige was also incredibly generous, insisting on paying for snack from a street vendor who was busy making hot dogs and corn dogs. Dr. Croft nudged Leo with her elbow. I don't think either of the first 2 girls you painted are right for you. The bright, lively one is too smart for you. You'd never be able to handle her. And you definitely can't handle the crazy, beautiful one. But this one here, she's perfect, fair, sweet, and Jenner. Oh, Leo sighed. Once he got familiar with older women, you realized they had no filter. How could she just say things like that out loud? Professor, please don't joke around. My godmother is her aunt. We're basically cousins. Dr. Croft just rolled her eyes. Boys his age were so stubborn, always deceiving themselves. She could tell in a single glance that this girl had a crush on Leo. Ah, youth. A time for games of I like you, you like her. When you got older, it was just you probably want my money, so get lost. The corn dogs were ready. Paige gave one to Leo and one to Dr. Croft, two to Moose, and kept one for herself. Moose chomped happily on his snack. She chomped happily on hers. Leo could feel Dr. Croft beside him, grinning like a Cheshire cat. Women of a certain age truly had no shame. He saw her smile and knew exactly what she was thinking. Paige was practically bouncing. She was wearing loose-fitting track pants and a tight, cropped athletic top, showing off a sliver of her pale, slender waist. Her wavy hair was tied into two pigtails, and her big, sparkling eyes watched Moose as they ran around together. As evening approached, the clouds drifting across the sky were stained crimson by the setting sun. And as Leo walked with Dr. Croft and Paige, his own innocent worldview was being stained by Dr. Croft's running commentary. He was supposed to be walking Moose. Instead, he found himself watching Dr. Croft guide Paige through a series of model poses, molding and arranging her like a piece of clay. The woman was a menace. It was a crisp autumn evening, with a seemingly endless cascade of golden ginkgo leaves falling to the ground. Paige and Dr. Croft had become fast friends, their connection immediate and effortless. Leo was starting to wonder if Dr. Croft's actual intelligence was a bit on the low side. Or perhaps she was so brilliant that she could put anyone at ease, making them feel happy and relaxed. Paige, Dr. Croft, and Moose were all having a blast. Leo felt like he was walking three creatures instead of one. When they were done, they didn't get dinner together. Leo had to go pick up Sean, and Dr. Croft had to take her herbal medicine. The corn dog had been a rare indulgence for her. She was supposed to avoid anything greasy or spicy. Paige could only pout and wave goodbye, her expression identical to Moose's. Dr. Croft was completely relaxed. That Paige is just adorable, she said, her tone already affectionate. Next time, I'm going to get her a flight attendant uniform to pose in. Leo winced. Professor, please, take it easy. She sighed dramatically. You don't understand. The only thing keeping me a virtuous woman is my poor health. If I had my strength, not a single one of those pretty boys at the clubs would escape my grasp. I have to feel up all their abs. The girls, too. I'd have to give them all a pat. So soft. It's this broken down body of mine that forces me to be a model citizen. And then I finally meet a cute girl like that. It was true, he thought. Anyone who dabbled in the arts seemed prone to dabbling in other things, too. Artists feared stagnation. They needed constant mental stimulation, a rich inner world to fuel their imaginations. A stable, unchanging life rarely produced great art. Tumultuous times bred classics, because emotions ran higher. You were fighting for freedom, for your country, for humanity. Your very soul was trembling. It was harder to find that kind of inspiration in peacetime, where every day emotions lacked that epic scope. Since becoming a dean, she'd produced less work. Life was comfortable, she had plenty of admirers, and she wanted for nothing. It was hard to create something that truly satisfied her. This long sabbatical was a chance for her to reflect on her future. She didn't know if she should resign her position to focus on her art. But her sister, Professor Reed, had advised against it. Professor Reed had seen how she lost herself in her work. If she didn't have a 9-to-5 job to ground her, she'd probably burn out and not live very long. A steady job meant less inspiration, but a longer life. A workhorse always lives longer, unless it loses the will to live. Oh, well, she thought, one step at a time. Just go where life takes you. As long as you still have choices, you're happy. Dr. Croft's mood shifted quickly. She felt like Leo was her lucky star. When they first met, it was just an artist appreciation for a handsome young man. But now, she'd grown genuinely fond of him. Not in a romantic way, but in the same way Professor Reed felt, that he was a good kid worth investing in. She was already comfortable enough to tell him off-color jokes. He was one of her own now. Leo said goodbye to Dr. Croft and headed back to the dorm to meet up with Jordan and Alex. He wasn't planning on showering. Maybe they'd all shower together when Sean got back, a sort of welcome-home cleansing ritual. But Jordan, ever the fastidious one, insisted the dog smell was too strong and demanded he wash up first. Fine. Moose had gotten a little too excited earlier. Seeing his owner on the ground being posed and prodded, he thought it was a new game and wanted to play too. While Dr. Croft had been fussing over her darling Paige, Leo had been wrestling with his shaggy dog. He was covered in fur. He took a quick combat shower and changed. Just as he finished, Alex pulled up. He was driving Leo's new car. The plates were already taken care of. Leo was starting to realize that he was becoming surprisingly resourceful. He'd been about to ask Alex for help with the registration. With Alex behind the wheel, Leo felt a little nervous. He was fine with strangers driving, but with friends, he always worried their mood would affect their driving, or that they'd fall asleep. They made it out of the campus gates without incident, though the crowds of students made him anxious. The last thing he wanted was to run someone over. Leo sat in the passenger seat, helping with navigation. From his vantage point, every person on the sidewalk seemed dangerously close, and he instinctively leaned away from the window. When a large truck pulled up alongside them, he tensed up, his foot instinctively pressing a phantom brake pedal on the floor. Alex noticed his anxiety and chuckled. "It's okay, man. I've actually driven before. I'm pretty good at it. Don't be nervous." From the back seat, Jordan piped up, "Maybe Leo should sit back here with me. I get nervous too, but in the back, I can just play on my phone and pretend I don't see anything. If something happens, well, that's fate." "It's not that bad," Leo said, exasperated. "Just a little on edge. Last time, they just driven on campus. This time, they were heading into the city." Alex was actually a smooth driver, braking gently and carrying on a conversation with ease. "You guys ever heard of the North-South divide in prisons?" Leo's mind went to Game of Thrones. "I have," Jordan said. "I have a relative who ended up in what they call the most educated prison in the country. One's for politicians, the other's for intellectuals. There's a place on the East Coast that's basically for white-collar criminals. They call it Club Fed." This was new to Leo. Jordan spent all his time goofing off, but he seemed to know a lot of random things. "Exactly," Alex said with a grin. "You know why government officials fight so hard to climb a ladder? It's not just for the status on the outside. If you end up on the inside, only the high-security federal penitentiaries have single cells with private bathrooms and laundry machines. I heard the meal allowance is like $140 a day per person. Regular medical checkups, even a dedicated dentist. You can read books and newspapers every day." He paused for effect. "If you don't work hard, even your prison sentence will be second-rate. You got to climb the ladder just to get a private cell." Jordan laughed. "Well, we'll never have a chance to get into a place like that. But you might, Alex. You should aim high." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," Alex deadpanned. "The minimum requirement for a spot in one of those places is a cabinet-level position. At my current starting point, I need a miracle to get there. My dad, on the other hand, if he keeps at it, he might have a shot at retiring there." Leo was speechless. He was getting a real education today. The career goals of a political dynasty were truly something else. Life really does begin at 40. Until then, you're just doing research. Carl Jung. He was on the bus, getting closer, almost back to the city where he went to school. He'd left home in the middle of the night, and now night was falling again. For lunch, he'd eaten the hard-boiled eggs and flatbread his mom had packed for him. He wasn't hungry, but his back ached and but was numb from sitting. He tried to edit a video, but it was too noisy, and though he had the time, he couldn't find the peace to concentrate. Back at school, his routine had been to shoot, edit, and post every day. He'd constantly check the comments, the analytics, refreshing the data at set times. It was busy, but for the first time, he'd felt grounded, like he finally had a purpose. Going home had thrown all of that into disarray. He'd kept up with the posts, but he hadn't been obsessively monitoring the numbers. Before, he'd analyze a daily fluctuation of 50 followers. A few minutes delay in posting would fill him with anxiety. But at home, his posting schedule had become erratic. One day, he didn't upload until almost midnight. He was almost afraid to look at the analytics page. The bus's cell service was spotty, cutting out completely in the vast rural stretches. When he'd first boarded, he'd glanced at his TikTok profile and thought his phone was bugging out. He had barely been posting, just enough to maintain the account. Yet overnight, he'd gained hundreds of thousands of followers. A miracle had just fallen into his lap. As the signal flickered in and out, he managed to piece together the reason from the comments. It was because of the promotional photos the studio had released of Leo on the set of The Chancellor's Gambit. It had little to do with his own videos. His DMs had exploded. There was even a message from a tea company offering him $20,000 for a single sponsor video. The requirements were simple: drink their tea in the video and have a roommate say it tastes good. Sean couldn't believe it. Was money really that easy to make? $20,000 was more than his entire family could save in a year, just for drinking some tea and saying it was good. It had to be a scam, or there were hidden strings attached. He hadn't replied yet. There were other messages, too. The most common request: was for a follow-back. The profile pictures range from teenagers to women in their 70s. One older woman who wanted to connect had a recent video of herself at her late husband's grave. The cemetery was elaborate, and the location tag was for a major city where he'd heard a burial plot cost more than a house. She was clearly wealthy. Other older women posted videos of themselves doing synchronized dancing in public squares, or were heavily filtered, sipping tea in their lush gardens. He never knew so many older women were on TikTok, let alone looking to chat with college kids. Leo's fan base was unique. The flood of messages was overwhelming. He was already stressed and sleep-deprived. He'd been up until 2 in the morning talking to his sister, then woke up at 3. He was running on an hour of sleep. He was worried he'd make a mistake with all this, screw up some major opportunity. During a rare moment of stable signal, he managed to upload a short clip of Leo painting, just to keep the account active. It was a simple 15-second shot, no real story, like something you'd post on your personal Instagram. He was lucky to be heading back to school today. If he kept fumbling, he'd waste this incredible surge of traffic. He was the kind of person who wouldn't even know how to catch a windfall if it landed in his lap. On the bus, he wished he could sprout wings and fly back to campus. But the bus just rumbled on, not too fast, not too slow, indifferent to his anxiety or exhaustion. He felt a knot of panic in his chest. Then, scrolling through TikTok, he saw the quote, "Life really does begin at 40. Until then, you're just doing research." Something clicked. If life began at 40, then at 23, even though he was the oldest in his dorm, he was only just past the halfway mark of his research phase. He didn't need to rush. He couldn't rush. Sometimes, he wished time would fly by, that he could grow up faster, make money, and improve his family's life. Other times, he was terrified it was moving too quickly, that he was in a race against his mother's illness. He wished he could slow it down, stop it even, and keep his mom healthy and by his side forever. At 23, Sean Riley, unshaven and wrapped in a worn-out green army surplus coat, looked like a migrant worker heading south. The bus swayed, the air thick with the smell of instant noodles and feet. The sounds of TikTok videos and soap operas mingled with the chatter and snores of his fellow passengers. It wasn't that cold in the south. The coat was too thick, out of place. But it was freezing back home, and you had to wear it when you left or you'd freeze. The roads were still slick with ice. He worried about his dad riding his bike back, especially on that one stretch with the high grass and a sharp blind curve. It was a beautiful spot for photos, wild grass, distant mountains, a winding road. Hikers loved it. Locals feared it. There had been accidents. The bus rumbled on, carrying him from the mountains to the city. The landscape transformed into a sea of lights and a symphony of noise. The other passengers grew restless. Half an hour before arrival, people were already grabbing their luggage, as if they were afraid someone would steal it. Getting on had been a chaotic rush, and getting off was no different. They stood in the aisle, clutching their bags. His own luggage was lighter now, half the food he'd brought having been eaten. The coat was too bulky to pack, so he just wore it. He shuffled off the bus with the crowd. The warm city air hit him like a wave, but at least it was fresh. After more than 10 hours on the cramped, stuffy bus, the smell had become unbearable. He recognized the station. Sean gripped the handle of his suitcase, the one with the broken wheel. It was filled with dried vegetables and whatever local specialties he could find at home. His roommates had helped him so much. He didn't have money, but he could bring them what he had. It wasn't much. That herbal tea they liked sold for a few dollars a pound at the local market. You could pick it all day and not even make $100. The poorer the place, the harder it was to earn a living. He squeezed through the crowd, planning to take off his coat once he was outside. It was too crowded to do it now. Leo, Jordan, and Alex were standing at the exit, all scanning the crowd. Normally, they wouldn't have made such a big deal of picking him up, but they were worried about him, about what had happened at home. They'd been roommates for 4 years, and they'd never had a real fight. That was rare. Leo and Alex didn't see him. It was Jordan who spotted him first. He started waving frantically. "Sean, over here." Jordan always noticed things like clothes and luggage. Leo and Alex were looking for a face. They'd never have recognized the weary, bearded man in the army coat as their roommate. He looked so much older, so worn down. But Jordan saw the coat, looked closer, and realized it was him. Sean had told them not to come, that it was too much trouble. He knew his way back to campus. There was a bus that ran from the station until 10, but they had come anyway. He saw Jordan first, pale and round in an oversized t-shirt despite the cool evening, waving at him. Then he saw Leo and Alex beside him. Alex was in a white button-down, slacks, and a dark blue, unbranded jacket, looking sharp. Leo was in a clean, simple sweatsuit, smiling and waving too. Sean swiped his bus pass at the turnstile, and pushed his way through the crowd to meet them. "Sean, man, you must be burning up," Jordan said, reaching for his coat. Alex clapped him on the shoulder. "Good trip." Leo reached for his suitcase. Seeing them, Sean smiled. He pulled each of them into a hug. "I'm back," he said, his voice thick with emotion. The station lights blurred in his tear-filled eyes. "I'm back." On the way back, Jordan moved to the passenger seat, letting Leo and Sean sit in the back. The car was new and spacious. Alex drove. Sitting in the plush leather seat, Sean felt like he'd stepped into another world. In just a few days, his roommates were picking him up in a brand new car. Things were changing so fast. The rich got richer, the powerful more powerful, and the poor got poorer, sicker, and more broken. But Sean had always had a good attitude. Despite his family struggles, he wasn't bitter or cynical. If he had been, the four of them would never have gotten along so well. Everyone started from a different place. No one's money or power had just fallen from the sky. His ancestors had planted the trees that others now enjoyed the shade of. He couldn't go back and complain that his grandparents hadn't worked harder or moved to the city. His grandfather was long gone, and his grandmother was still healthy, which was a blessing. So it was up to him. He would be the one to plant the tree, so that his children and grandchildren could have an easier life. The car seat was nothing like the one on the bus. The bus seat was hard and straight, impossible to get comfortable in. This one was soft leather, and he sank into it, feeling his whole body relax. "So this car was a gift from Director Shen?" he asked. Leo nodded. "You know how to ride a motorcycle, but you should learn to drive a car too. It'll be useful when we go out to shoot on location." I actually know how to drive," Sean said, a flicker of excitement in his eyes. He and his two biker friends back home worked as mechanics. He'd taken their cars out for a spin more than a few times. He didn't have a license, but he could handle the wild mountain roads like a pro. "Perfect. I'll sign you up for driving school tomorrow. We can count it as a production expense. I'll cover it for now, and you can pay me back when we start making money," Leo offered. He didn't particularly enjoy driving, and he couldn't always rely on Alex. He felt like he owed Alex too much already. "Okay," Sean said after a moment, not refusing. Getting a license was a necessary investment. The TikTok account had a lot of DMs, some from potential collaborators. "Don't worry about it now," Leo said. "Let's get some food first. We can talk about it later." Jordan turned around from the front seat. "The account's getting a ton of traffic, but there are a lot of scammers out there. Even on my smaller account, I've had a few try to get freebies." Jordan didn't need the money, which made it easier for him to spot the grifters. His beauty account had a smaller but valuable following of dedicated consumers. He could have taken on sponsorships, but it wasn't worth the risk to his reputation, plastering his face with sketchy products for a quick buck. The internet never forgets. Their roommate account had over 600,000 followers. If they wanted to cash in quick, they could go live and beg for donations or sell cheap junk. But the smarter move was to keep growing their audience. 600,000 was still relatively small on TikTok. Going live now would be like killing the goose before it even laid a golden egg. "Yeah, I know. We can't be hasty," Sean said, feeling a surge of motivation despite his exhaustion. "I've got plenty of time now. We can do this right." The guys were relieved to see his spirits were still high. He looked worn out, but the fire was still in his eyes. The worst thing you can do is give up on yourself. Then, no one can help you. It was like Leo at the beginning of his senior year, drifting, lost, just waiting for graduation. In that state of mind, no one could have helped him. He had to do this right. The guys were relieved to see his spirits were still high. He looked worn out, but the fire was still in his eyes. The worst thing you can do is give up on yourself. Then, no one can help you. It was like Leo at the beginning of his senior year, drifting, lost, just waiting for graduation. In that state of mind, no one could have helped him. He had to want to help himself first. Sean had been through a lot, but he hadn't lost his drive. That was a good sign. "Everything's okay at home," he said. "My parents wanted me to thank you guys. I brought you some beef jerky and some of that herbal tea." Alex, who was driving, chimed in. "That's great. I sent my mom the pictures we took, and she saw the tea. She said that stuff from your part of the country is really good. If you have any extra, I'd love to send some to her for my grandparents." "Yeah, of course. I brought plenty," Sean said, happy to be able to contribute something. "I'm not into the whole herbal tea thing, but your beef jerky is the real deal," Jordan said. "And those pickled greens are amazing," Leo added, his mouth almost watering at the memory. "The broth we made with them was perfectly sour. I brought some of those too. My sister knew you liked them, so she opened a fresh jar for me before I left." "How's your sister doing? Is all this going to affect her studies?" "She's a senior, right?" Leo asked. "She's smarter than me, braver than me, and more stubborn than me," Sean said. "My mom will have to go into the city for dialysis twice a week." but they're supposed to be getting a dialysis machine at the county hospital soon, so she won't have to travel as far. The rent is cheaper there, and my sister can keep an eye on her. My dad will probably go work in the state capitol. He picked up some night shifts at the hospital while my mom was there, and the pay was pretty good. They liked his work ethic, so he's thinking of doing that full time. Listening to him, the guys felt a pang of sympathy, but they were also relieved. It was better than the alternative, a family drowning in tears and despair. Everyone had a role to play, and life would go on. Well, that's good, Alex concluded. There's always a way forward. Things will get better. They chatted all the way back to the student strip, as if Sean had never been gone. They were all starving and headed straight for Lucky's. Leo insisted on paying. He won the lottery, after all. No one argued. He was the rich one in the dorm now. Even Alex, the son of a government official, didn't have that kind of cash on hand. Jordan could probably pull together $10,000, but any more than that would require a formal request to his parents. Sean had heard about Leo's lottery win in their group chat. He was happy for him, not jealous. It was pure luck. Jordan had been standing right next to him and hadn't won a thing. Leo knew it was the luck buff, so he didn't gloat. To Alex, this looked like remarkable composure. He realized he'd underestimated Leo, judging him too superficially. The guy wins a huge prize and doesn't get arrogant or brag about it. And Leo's family wasn't particularly wealthy. Alex knew he wouldn't have been able to stay so cool. He tended to wear his emotions on his sleeve. He'd even told his roommates about his dad's potential promotion before it was official, a rookie mistake. He had a lot to learn from Leo's steady demeanor. The four of them were finally reunited. It was late, but they were in luck. There was one last order of buffalo wings and corn fritters. The owner even went to shuck a fresh ear of corn for them. They skipped the beer and drank the free iced tea from the dispenser, the cheapest kind, with coarse leaves that sometimes clogged the spout. But it had been a while, and the familiar, slightly bitter taste was comforting. The rice was a bit sticky, scraped from the bottom of the warmer, but it was filling. The others had 2 bowls each. Sean, ravenous, had 3, cleaning out the entire pot. He let out a loud, garlicky burp. The chili they'd ordered was heavy on the garlic. They raised their plastic cups of iced tea, just as they had a month ago. To good luck from here on out, Alex declared. The cups clanked, spilling a few drops. The tea was old, but the men were young, in their early 20s, with the whole world ahead of them. That night, Sean's snores were thunderous. After a full day on the bus, lying down in his own dorm bed felt so good that his bones seemed to crackle with relief. The bed was small, but the familiar smells were comforting, and he fell asleep almost instantly. The sound was so loud it was almost reassuring. The 4 of them were used to it. Hearing Sean's snores again made the room feel complete, and they all slept a little more soundly. Leo said goodnight to Sella and was out moments later. The next morning, someone was up even earlier than Leo. When he woke, he saw a shadowy figure moving silently around the dark room, trying not to wake the others. It was Sean. When Leo padded out of the room, the sky was just beginning to lighten. The blackout curtains were drawn tight. The lights from the athletic field stayed on all night, and Alex, a light sleeper, even wore a mask. Jordan was even more extra. He had a curtain around his bed, like the girls in the female dorms. He'd gotten endless grief for it when he first installed it, earning him the nickname Joanna. Leo went to the bathroom to wash up. Sean was already there, sitting on a bench and scrolling through his phone. Morning, Leo mumbled through a yawn. Morning. Sean was bright-eyed and full of energy. He'd slept soundly through the night, a deep, uninterrupted sleep. At home, every little sound had woken him up. He'd lie awake, worrying about his mom, only falling back asleep after he heard her safely return to bed. This was the first full night's sleep he'd had in weeks. Seeing Leo, he stood up. Hey, it's been a while since I filmed you. Mind if I follow you around today? I'm getting rusty. Sure, Leo said, covering another yawn. Sean got right to work, recording Leo as he brushed his teeth and washed his face. He'd been watching a lot of TikToks while he was away. He'd noticed that videos with dialogue performed better than silent, documentary-style ones. In the age of short-form content, you had to spoon-feed the information to the audience. So, he started narrating, chatting as he filmed. New towel, Leo? Yeah, my mom sent me a care package after fall break. New towels, toothbrush, everything. Sometimes I feel like I'm still in kindergarten. Leo meticulously brushed his teeth for the recommended 2 minutes, the minty green tea toothpaste foaming in his mouth. From behind the camera, Sean noticed something different about him. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. Had something happened while he was away? Even the simple act of splashing water on his face seemed to carry a new, melancholic weight. And yet, as he talked with a mouthful of toothpaste, completely unself-conscious, he seemed more relaxed, more natural than ever before. When he walked away, Sean filmed his back, and for a second, he thought he saw an air of nobility. Was he just seeing things? Or maybe falling in love had changed him. Sean was confused, but he kept filming, trying to capture it all without judgment. Back in the dorm, Alex was awake but reluctant to get up. He wasn't sure if it was from running or from driving yesterday, but his thighs were sore. He was usually so disciplined, but after just 2 days of running, he already wanted to quit. He had to admire Leo's persistence. Anyone who could stick with something like that had a certain kind of strength. Jordan was still sound asleep. Leo finished his routine, downing his usual glass of honey water, which Sean dutifully filmed. That particular clip always got a lot of comments. People said they'd started drinking honey water every morning because of Leo. Sean had an idea for a montage. Every clip of Leo drinking honey water, showing his subtle transformation. It would be less of an ad for honey and more of an ad for an elixir of beauty. He filmed until Leo closed the bathroom door. Then he followed him downstairs for his warm-up. The campus was quiet. The path lights were still on. The sun was just rising, and the leaves on the trees had turned a brilliant yellow. In Sean's lens, the ordinary campus scene felt precious. He was so grateful to be back. The moment he'd found out about his mom's illness, his first thought had been to drop out. He never thought he'd see this place again. The morning air was cool, but his heart was warm. Leo started his run. Sean filmed him for a bit, then started running alongside him. He was in good shape, used to hard labor back home. The city kid's idea of a workhorse was just a metaphor. Back home, he'd literally been a beast of burden, plowing fields and hauling grain. At his usual spot, Leo saw Professor Reed and Dr. Croft and waved. Sean did the same. Professor Reed had heard about Sean's mom and asked how she was doing. Sean was touched that she would even know who he was. She's much better, thanks. She's out of the hospital now, just needs to rest at home and go in for regular treatments. Dr. Croft chimed in. Look at me, she said, pointing to various spots on her body. I've got scars here, here, and here, all from surgeries, and I'm still kicking. Don't you worry about being sick. You just learn to live with it. A positive attitude is the most important thing. Sean looked and saw a faint, diagonal scar on her neck. He couldn't see the others, but he felt encouraged. Everyone here was so optimistic. It was easy to fall into despair at home. After a brief chat, Leo continued his run. Halfway through, his phone rang. It was Professor Hoffman. Leo, you free today? I was thinking of going fishing. Ever been sea fishing? No, but I'd love to try. My roommate's back, though, and he's filming me today. Can I bring him along? Professor Hoffman hesitated for a second. Sure. I'll have my driver, Walt, pick you both up. We'll meet at the marina. Great. Leo was planning on visiting the professor soon anyway. It was because of him that he'd gotten the role of the team master. He'd thought it was just a bit part, but then he'd heard there was some controversy over it, that another, more famous actor had been considered. He was sure Professor Hoffman had pulled some strings for him, and then he'd won the lottery. He owed the man a thank you, and it was always better to show gratitude before the fact. The morning sun glittered on the dew-kissed grass of the garden, each droplet a tiny diamond. Autumn weather was the best, not too hot, not too cold. Victoria Vance had the housekeeper set up breakfast in the yard. Their mansion, though part of a gated community, was the prized jewel of the neighborhood. They'd hired a top designer with a single mandate. Every view from the house must be a picturesque landscape. The yard was a carefully constructed forest, with artificial hills and mature trees obscuring the outer walls. They'd even donated trees to the community to enhance the view. From the yard, you felt like you were in a secluded woodland. A corner of a neighboring house was visible from one angle, so they planted a massive tree to block it. The design philosophy was to be one with nature from every angle. Of course, this was a curated version of nature. The entire yard was equipped with a hidden, scent-based insect repellent system. Humans love the idea of nature more than the reality. They love the beauty, not the bugs, rats, and flies that come with it. It wasn't just Victoria being fussy. When Stella had started school here, Victoria had followed her. Richard Vance, worried his wife would be bored, encouraged her to take on a project. The mansion was the result. Richard had come home last night, exhausted from his business trip. He was happy to see his wife and daughter, but his expression soured when he saw the two identical paintings. He was starting to understand his wife's frustration. As someone with no artistic inclination, even Richard could see that the paintings were good. He couldn't make sense of abstract art, but he could recognize a human face. To capture a person with such vitality was undeniably skillful. But the subject was the little punk his daughter liked. Honestly, his first thought was that his daughter had decent taste. The boy was easy on the eyes, with a straightforward gaze. But that was his only thought. This kid was trying to steal his daughter. Why would he waste another second looking at him? He turned his attention to consoling his wife. Stella, curious about her father's reaction, listened in. First, don't worry about the money, he told Victoria. I make so much of it precisely, so you don't have to. You give your friends expensive gifts all the time. It's normal. What's the point of having money if you don't spend it? Second, the future is uncertain. Worrying about it now is a waste of energy. People get divorced even after they're married. This is just her first relationship. Let her experience it. She'll never grow up if she's always under our wing. A quick romance, a quick breakup, it's how you learn. It's hard, but eventually you have to let go. That was all Stella heard. Her father was a decisive man. Her mother might complain, but in the end, she would always come around. Her father, on the other hand, never said no, but his disapproval was clear. She had been curious about his opinion of Leo, but he didn't have one. He simply didn't care. It didn't surprise her. A businessman never commits until the deal is done. He was treating her relationship like one of her whims, like buying a new car or a handbag. As long as she liked it, she could have it. His nonchalance was more disheartening than outright disapproval. It made her feel like the thing that was so important to her was trivial to him. She finished her breakfast in silence and headed back to school. As she was leaving, her father transferred another sum of money into her account. After she left, Richard finished his own breakfast and got ready to leave. I might be out on the water today, so I'll be back late, he told Victoria. Don't wait for me for lunch. You should invite your friends over to see the paintings. Victoria sighed. Every time she thought something was a major crisis, her husband treated it like a minor inconvenience. It made her feel so foolish. She had already invited her friends, including the artist herself. Might as well get it over with. Once a secret is out, there's no point in hiding it anymore. Leo had been doing some research on sea fishing ever since he got the buff. He'd asked Jordan and Alex if they'd ever been. Alex had been to a ceremony on a ship once, but it had stayed in the harbor. Jordan had been on a boat before. Their city was on the coast. He'd advised Leo to bring motion sickness pills, sunscreen, and a hat. Sean was nervous about going, but he was determined to overcome it. The trip home had changed him. He was even more quiet than before. Fishing on a boat would make for great content, and he had to be ready to capture it. He didn't know if he got seasick, but he packed some Dramamine just in case. Walt, the driver, picked them up at their dorm. Leo had also asked him to help Sean sign up for driving school. Walt was even more polite than before. He knew that Leo was going to an important meeting with Professor Hoffman, and that he was the lottery winner from the film set. He was impressed that Leo was dressed so casually for such a high-stakes outing, in a simple sweatsuit that probably cost a few $100s at most. The kid had class. Leo wasn't nervous. The stamina buff made him feel grounded, secure. The smarter he got, the more he felt the world was full of threats. But the stronger he got, the simpler things seemed. The sea off the coast of Bridgeport wasn't like the tropical waters of Florida. There were no long, sandy beaches, just rocky shores and fishing piers. But for a city with 4 distinct seasons, having a coastline at all was a gift. Today, the sky was clear and the sea was calm. As Walt drove them along the coast, Leo knew they were getting close. He'd been to Miami once with his aunt. The water there had seemed bluer. Maybe it was because this coastline was lined with sea walls and industrial buildings, not beachfront hotels. The car continued for another 10 minutes. Sean was getting more and more nervous. It felt like he'd been gone for years, not days. He couldn't keep up with Leo's new life, the new people and places he was encountering. He hated this feeling of being out of his depth. He envied Alex's confidence, Jordan's indifference, and now Leo's rapid growth. He couldn't fall behind. He had to be useful. He could film. He could edit. He was good at that. He took a deep breath and reminded himself to just focus on his job. At the hospital, lying on the cot next to his mother's bed, he'd replayed his college years in his head. He couldn't remember much, just a hazy blur of wasted time and a painful crush on Megan. What had he ever seen in her? If she ever saw his home, the shabby little house, his simple family, she'd run for the hills. He'd spent years hiding from reality, distracted by the glamour of the city and the attention of a pretty girl. But he couldn't hide anymore. He had to face his life, to work hard, to build something for himself. They arrived at a private marina. A medium-sized yacht was docked at the pier. Professor Hoffman was waiting for them at the bottom of the gangway. Leo felt a wave of relief. Walt opened the door for him with a flourish. Sorry for the short notice, the professor said, but the marine forecast is most accurate in the morning. We didn't know it was a good day to go out until about 6:30. Judge Cole loves to see fish. It'll just be us today. I came down to meet you, in case you were nervous about the boat. A little, Leo admitted. I've never been sea fishing before. But then I figured, you have a lot more to lose than I do, Professor. My blood type is O positive, nothing special. So I'm probably safe. Professor Hoffman roared with laughter. He liked the kid's honesty. Sean just stood there silently, having mumbled a greeting and then clammed up. Will we be able to film with Judge Cole here? Leo asked. I asked him. He said he's retired, just a regular guy. He doesn't mind, but try not to get him in the shot if you can help it. Of course. I'll show his security the footage before we post anything. They boarded the boat. It was just Judge Cole, but there were several crew members, including a medical officer. Good morning, Judge Cole, Leo said, introducing Sean. This is my roommate, Sean Riley. We make the TikToks together. He's my cameraman for the day. Judge Cole looked slightly annoyed. He didn't like dealing with the media, especially the new age social media types. But they were just students, and he had to admire their initiative. He'd agreed to the filming out of a desire to see how the younger generation operated. And if he was being honest, he was also a little superstitious. He didn't want to go all this way and come back empty-handed. Professor Hoffman had told him about Leo's lottery win. The money was trivial, but the luck. That was something to be respected. At his age, he'd learned to have a healthy regard for the mystical. Having a lucky charm on board couldn't hurt. And when Hoffman had told him Leo's response to the invitation, never been, but I'd love to try, he'd heard the confidence in the kid's voice. This was no ordinary college student. As for the roommate, he was unassuming. The judge knew his story. Poor family from the mountains, sick mother. A sad case. But looking at him now, he saw a steady gaze, a quiet determination. He wasn't unlucky. A truly unlucky person would never have made it this far. He was here because of Leo. His association with a person of good fortune had changed his own. It just want to show how important your friends are. The judge wasn't arrogant. The only people who were allowed to film him were renowned professionals. For a college student like Sean to be here was unprecedented. And Hoffman was a good man, too. He'd come down to the dock to greet the boys personally. A small gesture of respect that spoke volumes. With everyone on board, the boat set off. The gentle rocking was unnerving at first, but Sean soon got used to it. He was so nervous, he didn't know what to do with his hands. Leo had told him a retired official might be there, and to just act normal, like he was with Alex's grandfather. Sean remembered Alex, saying his grandpa was a retired official who got thousands of dollars in prescription drugs covered every month. He didn't know what that meant exactly, but he knew it was a big deal. He forced himself to focus on his work. The boat slowly pulled out of the harbor, and as they reached the open sea, the world opened up. It was Sean's first time on a big boat, and his excitement soon overshadowed his anxiety. The way the sky and the sea blended together at the horizon, the feeling of the vast, open space. He wanted to capture all. He'd heard that rich people chase this feeling by jumping out of airplanes or climbing Mount Everest. They'd seen so much that it took risking their lives to feel anything at all. In a way, there was a benefit to having seen so little. It meant there was still so much to discover, so much joy and wonder left to experience. After filming the scenery, Sean explored the yacht. He was fascinated by everything. The sliding doors, the windows that pushed outward, the soundproofing between the rooms. It was like a villa built on the water, with the entire ocean for a backyard. He filmed with the eyes of a novice, capturing the details that a seasoned sailor would overlook. Where does the fresh water come from? Is there a designated route for boats? Or can you just go wherever you want? These were the questions that would resonate with his audience, the majority of whom had never set foot on a yacht. It was like going to Starbucks for the first time, nervously ordering a coffee, and being startled when the barista asked for your name. His main subject, of course, was Leo. He found him on the deck, getting a lesson in jigging. It turned out you couldn't just toss a piece of metal anywhere. There was a science to it. The technique had been invented by a Japanese fisherman who went on to open a world-famous tackle shop, a pilgrimage site for serious anglers. Leo wondered what had possessed the man to try fishing with a piece of iron in the first place. The jigs were heavy, ranging from a few ounces to several pounds, depending on the depth and the type of fish they were after. Today, with the sky clear and the sea calm, Leo, armed with his basic fishing proficiency level 2 and a special luck bonus for ocean fishing, was ready to test his skills. The boat was heading toward a small, uninhabited island about an hour from the coast, a popular spot for catching big fish. As they traveled, they prepped their gear and chatted. Leo used to dread small talk, but he was getting better at it. He'd learned that the key was to listen more than you talk and to never try to show off. Professor Hoffman was a gracious host, making sure to include Leo in his conversation with Judge Cole. So, what did you do with the lottery money? He asked. I called my mom right after I found out. Leo said, I'm going to send her $100,000. I put $250,000 in the stock market, and the rest is for taxes and spending money. You play the market, do you? The professor asked, intrigued. He wrote best-selling books on economics, but he never touched stocks himself. Leo knew that, to these men, his small investment was like a child's allowance. But he wasn't embarrassed. He pulled out his phone and opened his Robinhood account. He remembered reading an interview with a low-profile billionaire, a Mr. S. Vance, who had said his investment strategy was simply to read the news. The government never lies, he'd said. I've always had faith in our country. Parroting this sentiment, Leo handed his phone to the professor. I don't really follow the market closely, he said, but we were studying it in my economics class, and I figured the best way to learn is by doing. I didn't listen to any of the analysts. Everyone says you lose money in the market, but based on what I've learned, our country's economy is only going to get stronger. I didn't bet on a single stock. I chose a blue-chip industrial, and I bet on the country. Then I just left it alone. Judge Cole, who had been listening quietly, was impressed. He'd heard countless stories of people getting rich quick or losing all in the market. His own younger relatives were always chasing inside tips and expert analyses. But he'd never heard a young man in his 20s talk about investing in the nation's destiny. This wasn't speculation. It was long-term vision. Professor Hoffman looked at the phone. Well, I'll be damned. You really just picked one at random. Before the fall break, there had been a bull run, and people were going crazy talking about selling their houses to buy stocks. This unassuming kid had gotten in right before that. The app showed his portfolio's performance. He'd started with an initial investment of $50,000, and his profits had already surpassed that. And yesterday, he'd put in another $250,000, catching the stock at a low point. His total earnings were already in the six figures. This kid's luck was off the charts. Leo didn't mention that his 24-hour luck buff had been active at the time. The phone was passed to Judge Cole. He was in his 70s, 50 years Leo's senior, but he was tech-savvy. The screen was a sea of green. He was starting to understand the allure of the stock market. You say you're not selling, the judge said, handing the phone back. So what's your target price? I'm planning to sell when it hits 200, Leo said calmly. It could probably go higher, but even a rising tide has to recede for a bit. 200 seems like a good point to take a break. The judge smiled. You're a confident young man. He laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. I have to tell my old friends about this. Even if we don't catch a single fish today, this trip has already been a success.